Greetings, Sifters. It's Tuesday. It's 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We're at twitch.tv/SIFTD which could only mean one thing. It's time for GameFace, the world's best gaming podcast. And my co-host to do that is Matt Keil. What's up, Matt?
Best gaming podcast?
I think it is. I think we have the best gaming podcast.
Probably. I'm just noting how low that bar must be in the first place.
I truly believe that. I think we have the best gaming podcast in the world. Y'all need to evangelize it more and get it out to more people so other people will agree. How's your week been, Matt?
All right. Anything? My cat is officially off for chemo.
Oh wow, that's great, man.
That's probably the big.
That's a big deal.
She took her last pill on Saturday.
Awesome.
So we'll see if she holds with no new symptoms going forward, and she gets rechecked in 2 months. And if everything's still cool, she can come off her steroids, and then she's down to just thyroid pills. So.
Cats are a rabbit hole of cost.
Yeah.
My mom, man, she'll take her cats to the vet for anything. Like her vet loves her because she probably spends $5,000 a year at the vet.
Yeah, I am not that paranoid about it, but I've had enough cats in my life that I know if something's wrong.
Yeah. You get if you live with a cat, you know when a cat's feeling good, you know when a cat's feeling down. You just kind of can read the cat after you know it for a while. So that's awesome. I went out clubbing for the first time in a really long time this weekend. There was a big event on Saturday with a bunch of DJs that I love. DJ Sneak, Mark Farina, DJ Heather. It was like the best lineup I've seen in forever. I was like, I'm getting my ass out, and I went out and enjoyed some good house music. It's the first time I've done that for a while. The cool thing about LA, I'm sure you guys are looking at...
What were the demographics of that?
Well, I was just about to say that. So I'm sure you're watching this right now and being like, Shane went out clubbing. He's so old. Like, that's not the way it is in LA, though. Like, the house music scene here are people like my age. It is all ages. Like, you'll see some younger people, but it literally spans. There are people there that are in their 70s. Like, people who got into house music in the 90s who are already a little older.
I mean, I've been to a couple of synthwave and, retrowave concerts here, and it's all people our age.
Yeah,
it's like, there's a lot of... The younger kids are the ones that are, stand out, because it's mostly people in their 30s and 40s.
Well, the 80s sound, which is what synthwave is, of course it's going to appeal to an older audience.
But also, it's you would think it might also appeal to younger in the sense that it has nothing to do with the actual 80s.
Right.
Nothing in the 80s actually sounded. It's more of an idea of what the 80s sounded like.
Yeah.
So if you like that, you like that whatever age you are. But it's just.
The funny part is all the DJs that I went to see were older than me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the scene here. That's why I love it here, because you can go out and hear good DJs here and not be out of place. Now, if I were to go to like when I go to EDC every once in a while, when my buddy gets me free passes for EDC, we go there.
That's crew back east.
No, that's in Vegas. That's the world's biggest rave or whatever.
That's right.
That's that gigantic one that happens at the Speedway. When we go there, me and my crew roll around. We stand out. We're older, and some people even come up to us and be like, "Hey, are you here watching your kids?"
Yeah. Are you feds?
Seriously? And I'll be like, "No, I've been doing this since 1994," and they're like, I wasn't even alive for another 15 years.
I know.
I know. It isn't. I wouldn't go do that by myself and walk around. But when it's you and a crew of 7 or 8 of your friends, right, then you're the weird old guy who's hanging out at the bar or whatever. So anyway, I had a good weekend. I needed to blow off some steam. These last couple of weeks have really just worked me into a fever pitch. So I had a good time. Hopefully you guys have had a good week as well. I've also been playing a bunch of video games that we're about to talk about here on the show today. Also today, huge news, our news section today. I'm going to have to be careful to make sure we don't go over too far. But we only have 2 reviews today. We're going to review Lego Horizon Adventures, and we're going to review Dwagon Quest.
Elmer Fudd will be here to talk about the new Dragon
Maybe
Quest.
That's what I should do, is create video reviews for games where Elmer Fudd is the voiceover. So anyway, we're going to review Dragon Quest 3 HD-2D. And we're going to review Lego Horizon Adventures. And the rest is just all news, because there's been tons and tons of news this week. Big news stories that got you guys all excited on SIFTD, man. I think we've had some of the biggest comment counts this week on SIFTD, as far some articles just did dozens and dozens and dozens of comments this week. So some stuff has got you fired up, and Matt and I are going to discuss it right here on the show. Before we get going, let's check in with you guys in the chat and see what y'all are up to. Not Cirque, thank you for Twitch Prime. The Legacy, thank you for Twitch Prime. Mitchell Ness says, we feeling some MJ today. Yes, I played some Michael Jackson before the show today, and AJ the Legend Watson says, great song. It is a great song. I still have to admit, I still have some waning issues with Michael Jackson that I'm still trying to work through.
He was a very weird man.
Yeah.
But
his music is great, though.
He did some great fucking music.
That's the problem. It's hard.
You gotta give Quincy the props, too.
Definitely, who just passed away. One thing about Quincy Jones that I think a lot of people don't realize, I think a lot of people think of Quincy Jones, they think R&B and soul and stuff like that.
No, everything.
He was
all
everything.
Music.
He, believe it or not...
He's probably the greatest music producer of all time.
It's unreal. He, believe it or not, is the guy who signed New Order to America.
Yeah.
Nobody ever would have guessed that.
He knew everything about music. Like
He
he wasn't limited to any kind of genre. He didn't discount any kind of anything. He looked at music as like a holistic thing.
Yeah.
It was remarkable.
He had this little label
and he could
spin-off.
do all of it.
He could. Yep, he had a label spin-off called Quest Records, and they were just like all alternative. And he just wanted to do that.
Yep.
It wasn't even like his purviews per se. And he brought New Order's music to America, which is amazing. He published like all their albums after like their first one or whatever. So anyway, rest in peace, Quincy Jones. Truly a legend. No doubt about that.
And he is definitely instrumental in the MJ legacy.
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course. Pedor91, thank you for Twitch Prime. GetUpKid1284, thank you for Twitch Prime. Anybody else get in here? I don't think so. I think that's all of them. Wow, you guys are quiet today before the show. Usually have a lot more comments on... Legacy says he is the taxi driver in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yep.
And I did not know that, actually.
Yeah. Yo home, smell you later.
Yeah. Red Fox 1980, thank you for Twitch Prime. Blitches9, that's a pretty awesome username, says the elections completely overshadowed Quincy's death. I mean, it overshadowed a lot of things, let's be honest. But yeah, you're right.
That'll happen.
Yeah. And then Mitchell Ness says, plus he co-made Rashida Jones, which is also an impressive feat. Yeah, no doubt. JM Rain, thank you for Twitch Prime. JM Rain 99, appreciate it, brother. Hope you're doing good. Is that all we got for you guys early in the show? It looks that way. All right. Well, without much further ado, I think we're ready to crack on with the headlines. The first one we're going to talk about is the one that got you guys all fired up. And I think a big part of this story, Matt, is that people didn't know the whole story when they first saw the story. So what has happened is that baseline, Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to have a battle pass. And that was the first thing that kind of leaked out. Like Ubisoft screwed up and posted like a couple images that it wasn't supposed to that basically talked about the battle pass. So people like flipped out and were like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Like it's a single player game that I'm going to pay for and now you're going to make me pay to go through a battle pass? Well, not so fast. Basically what happened is, and this is another interesting angle to this. Do you remember Assassin's Creed Infinity? Do you remember they announced that 3 years ago?
Yeah,
we were like
the hub platform that everything's in a branch from.
Yeah, well I think some people maybe thought it might have actually been a game at one point. But as it turns out, Assassin's Creed Infinity, that they've now renamed to the Animus Hub, is just an app, basically, that collects all the Assassin's Creed games into one place.
Yeah, this was always what this was. I don't know why this was a surprise to some people. I guess you can't pay attention for years to the same
it's been a while.
Rumor or whatever. But like, no, that's always what Infinity was always going to be, your landing platform for the Assassin's Creed brand.
Yep. And so it's going to basically, as Matt said, is a landing place for all the games. They're all going to be collected in there, but also in there is going to be a battle pass for each game.
Yeah.
But
now, I don't like that idea, so I should note. Like I knew what it was. It just makes me think of like the Call of Duty thing where I got kicked offline and I couldn't play the offline campaign anymore. Like I don't like unifying all this stuff like that. Just let me play the fucking game.
I'd agree. So I'm still excited about this game though. Heck.
No, I'm not. It's not to put a damper on any of I'll play anything Assassin's Creed. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Sure.
But so the thing is that the battle pass is free.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost anything.
Which is like, you should not call it a battle pass then.
Yeah.
Like, because battle pass means something.
It does.
Because of Fortnite. It's the same way like they started calling them battle passes because Fortnite's popular, but then everybody freaked out because they didn't understand what it was, and it's like, no, it's a season pass. And then everyone freaked out about season passes on like Outlaws or whatever, and it's like, there have been season passes for DLC expansions for 12 years. Like, what the fuck are you people whining about?
Yeah, I know.
Like, so you should call it something different, because Battle Pass inherently makes people think they have to pay for it because of how Fortnite runs.
Yeah. I mean, that's what people associate with Battle Pass.
What does pass even mean?
As you play the game, it unlocks a succession of stuff, equipment, buffs, things like that, just like any other battle pass.
But pass means something. A pass means I got it, which means I get access to this thing.
Right.
If everyone has access to it because it's free, that's just part of the game.
Yeah,
like that's not a separate thing anymore.
I think
what are you talking
the
about?
Charge or what you pay for it is your time.
Yeah, but like that's still not a thing. Like that's,
right.
that's just another thing in the game.
Yeah,
like that's
you're
like
right.
It's like saying the skill tree is a skill pass
Yeah.
because if everyone gets it, it's free, but it's a separate part of the game. You put things. It's like that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Ubisoft has made a lot of
branding problems,
boneheaded
over
mistakes.
There. Yeah, they have.
I mean,
like, and I don't know what what. I mean, I don't want to bring the Duck Consulting Agency back online here, but it's like,
yeah, you do.
Like who wasn't in the room to tell them like how this would be perceived?
Not us.
Like it doesn't matter. Like who gives a shit?
Yeah, it's
don't
pretty
call
crazy.
it. Just say it's a function of the Animus Hub, or call it like a sync mission or anything,
or a content launcher, or anything else.
Make it like on brand. Like use Assassin's Creed terminology and not like Fortnite terminology.
Right.
Or
I mean, they did end up calling it the Animus Hub, I guess.
But that's the name of the thing. But I mean, the Battle Pass thing. Like, half the reason people are up in arms about this thing is because they hear Battle Pass, they think Fortnite, they think I have to pay for this every week or whatever.
Although with Fortnite, you can generally play it and not have to
but
pay.
they know there's not going to be a way to do that in a Ubisoft game, so they think they're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah,
I mean, now you got to run this whole thing where you explain to people that this thing we call this thing that you normally have to pay for in any other context from other companies is actually a free thing that everyone gets, so why is it a pass?
And that's what Ubisoft did the next day. You gotta remember that Ubisoft didn't get to message this. Like, people found the images, and then the people who found the images messaged it.
But even if you had announced it officially, you would still have had to put this out the next day because people
you would have called it the Battle Pass still probably, but you would have said at that minute that it's free.
But it wouldn't have mattered because all people would see was Battle Pass and they'd freak out because they don't listen to things.
Well, I mean, the people who originally messaged this, the people who found it, did not message that it was going to be free.
Right. But what
people just assumed, rightfully
But I'm saying
so.
It doesn't matter. Like, people don't listen to your actual message. They're going to read the headline. It says Battle Pass in Assassin's Creed, and they're going to lose their minds.
No, you're probably right.
Even though there's no actual basis for it.
I mean, I'll say this. Like, people don't read. I hate to admit it. Like, we can look at data on SIFTD, and we can see that, like, a lot of people use the site, but they don't necessarily click through the content. Now, to be fair, it's kind of our goal so that people don't have to click through if they don't want to. Like, a lot of gaming websites, they'll say, hey, you won't believe this thing that's in this game. And you need to click the article to figure out what the thing is. Well, what we do is we tell them what the thing is in the blurb so that they don't have to click through. We cut out kind of the crappy parts of the internet where people are clickbaiting people. Like, we cut that out with our blurbs. And so we don't get a lot of people that actually click through and read the stuff. But there's still a lot of people using the site on a daily basis. They just look at the headline, the blurb, and for most people, that's good enough. So to your point, Matt, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, and I just don't... The Battle Pass thing, the terminology is wrong. It's like, especially because there's not really anything different here. It's like, I already go and get the stupid, do all this fake-ass achievements and get points to buy in-game things from the Uplay thing. You're just rebranding that, basically.
Yeah.
There's even community, achievement things in that. Everybody's got to kill 1.5 billion stormtroopers or whatever, and you get 30 points or some stupid thing. Yeah. It's like, so I guess they must be using this to replace the Uplay integration.
Probably.
But why use
because now that they went to Steam and
right, but why use something that a term that already means something in games?
Bottom line is Ubisoft screwed up twice. It screwed up by publishing the stuff before it was supposed to be published, before it could message it.
Which is really just Ubisoft standard operating
right, because it does a lot of his stuff gets leaked, let's be honest.
At least it wasn't on a laptop on a plane.
Yeah. And then its other mistake was using the term Battle Pass. I mean, those are two huge screw-ups, so I'm sure Ubi is trying to blame it on the people who found the stuff or whatever. No, it's all Ubisoft's fault.
No, you did that.
It's your problem that you created on your own. Now you need to deal with it, but it is really insane how often Ubisoft screws up. I don't understand it. Like, it went from being almost infallible for a good decade to, it can't do anything right.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's really bizarre.
More and more, it feels like the taking it private again thing and sort of, regrouping in some way and finding some new way to, kind of make the leadership work feels like the only thing they have at this point. It all feels so doomed.
It does feel like it's teetering on the brink, for sure.
And I wish not, because I'd love to see Beyond Good and Evil 2 someday.
What's crazy?
I love Assassin's Creed. I don't want to see Assassin's Creed go away.
When you start thinking about all the IP it has, it's mind-blowing.
And like,
what are you doing?
And like, you don't want to see it become like an Interplay thing where they sell all these things off into some fire. God knows who would end up with that stuff.
Right. God. I mean, a lot of the IP would just be ruined ultimately.
Yeah, like watch Square Enix buy Assassin's Creed, and then oh my God, we're all just. Ugh.
That would be awful.
Oh,
because we've been all hoping that Square Enix will start making their games more like Ubisoft's games. And now it's crazy how the industry turns. Wow, you guys have a lot of comments about this in the chat. Let's go to you guys and see what you guys are saying about it. Mitchell Ness says, how many years do you think Ubisoft will be its own company?
I mean, that's
another 4 or 5?
Like 4 or 5, or like next week. Who fucking knows at this point? Man.
Yeah. Erebus Jones, they do this already. You get free stuff for your games via Uplay. This is just botched reputation. Yeah, I mean, that's what Matt said. Yeah. Now that it's moving to Steam, it has to figure out what it's going to do with all that stuff it's been doing all along. The Legacy says Ubisoft and Jeff need to learn what DLC means. Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
I mean, the Uplay thing works fine through the Steam. It's just another thing that pops up in the background.
It doesn't really bother me on consoles either.
No. It's fine.
Shane A 28, thank you.
It loads way faster than it used to, so that's fine.
That's true.
Remember when on like 360 you used to have to sit there for like a minute while it loaded the fucking Uplay or whatever, Ubisoft Connect back then, I guess.
Yep. Minority Games, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. That's awesome, man. Thank you. And Shane A 28, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome as well. Khalib Twilight says that's Assassin's Creed a la carte. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it with Infinity for sure. Retro Modern Gamer, do you think EA should buy Ubisoft?
I don't think EA should buy anyone.
I mean, if you really want Ubisoft to be ruined with a quickness, sure.
Yeah, if you want all the Tom Clancy stuff and Assassin's Creed to be thrown in a vault somewhere and never looked at again, I guess that's good for EA. Yeah.
I mean, the crazy part is that there's all these rumors that Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, is like in line to be the next CEO at Disney. What has he done at EA?
I don't know.
He has not taken EA to this new height. He hasn't.
Well, also, it's like Disney's main experience with EA has been them fucking up the Star Wars games for the last 10 years. So what do you think? Like, I don't get it.
I mean, that's probably why it's happening. Because they have that relationship with him through Star Wars. That'd be my guess.
Like EA's primary quality of the last decade is they don't have any ideas.
Their primary quality of the last decade is the Battle Pass, is the game as a service, is Ultimate Team. Mm-hmm. That's what has buttered EA's bread for the last 10 years.
Sure, but that doesn't translate to anything Disney.
Right, that's what I was getting at. I'm like, how does that help Disney?
The head of Disney should be someone out of the creative side.
I agree.
Like, you got to start bringing...
With an eye for the creative.
Yeah, you got to start bringing back people running movie studios that used to make movies. Yeah. That's how it used to work.
Who understand the business.
As opposed to people who had got marketing degrees through nepotism and got assigned to some executive wing out of college or out of grad school.
And got fast-tracked right up.
Like, if you've never made a movie or a TV show, you have no business calling the shots in a studio.
Agreed. A billion times. Agreed. But we worked in production. So
right.
A lot of people haven't.
Yeah, but that's how it used to work.
It is. Yeah.
Until it became, big business in the 80s.
So ultimately, really, the Battle Pass inside Assassin's Creed Shadows is really a non-story. It's not a big deal. Don't freak out about it. It's basically, again, replacing Uplay. Where you would get these weird things that would pop up. Be like, you want to go check it out? You could go there. You'd be like, oh, we'll give you a free shirt for your character. Like, that's how it used to work. Now, instead of going to Uplay, you're just going to go to Assassin's Creed Infinity, basically, and do the same thing there.
One more thing to not work right.
Pretty much, yeah. Although I would say that Uplay worked pretty well.
It did, but it
was a little sluggish.
But Uplay being universal to every game the company made means that they had a huge incentive to make sure that worked for everyone who was making everything. And if you're going to limit this thing to just Assassin's Creed, that means the Assassin's Creed unit has to sort of deal with this and make it work all on its own. Mm-hmm. And while they're trying to, it just, you worry about whether they will give it the attention that it needs because it is not company-wide anymore.
That's fair. That's a fair criticism for sure. So anyway, there you go. That's Assassin's Creed Shadows Battle Pass. That isn't. Next up, we're going to talk about the Game Awards nominees that were just announced. Obviously, someone already took a little bit out of Jeff there talking about DLC. I guess the first thing we should do is just go through. We're going to only talk about mostly the Game of the Year nominees. We can't go through all of them. We'll talk about the Game of the Year nominees, and if there was anything else then that kind of struck you, we'll talk about that as well.
Oh, there is.
I'm sure there is, and there's a couple things for me as well. First up, though, let's talk about the Game of the Year nominees. It's Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, which is DLC, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor ReFantazio.
I just want to note that I called Balatro as a Game of the Year nominee before it even came out.
No, you did. Yeah.
When the demo came out.
Yeah.
That week, I said, here's one of your first Game of the Year nominees for the year.
Let's start with...
So it is.
So here's the thing. We don't want to share our takes on this stuff as far as what we think is going to be picked. But what do you think is ultimately going to win? And again, you should know, because people are kind of bagging on Jeff about this. It's the editors at all the different websites who nominate these games. So Jeff provides the framework. So I guess if you're saying it's a weird that DLC was nominated, that's on him.
I feel like Jeff could still veto the DLC thing.
He could, yeah. I mean, he's the one who sets the parameters, and then the editors have to vote within the parameters that Jeff gives them. And if he told them Shadow of the Erdtree is fine, then they're going to vote for it. So, I mean, he does have a little bit of responsibility, but ultimately, it's the editors who had to vote for Shadow of the Erdtree for Game of the Year for it to make the list. So there's a little bit of culpability on both sides, I would guess.
Everybody's an idiot, what you're saying.
I guess that's one way to put it. Matt, is there any game on this list of nominees that sticks out to you as maybe it doesn't belong?
Yeah, Shadows of the Erdtree.
Yeah.
It's DLC that isn't standalone, and you have to play 40 hours of the main game to even see it, and then you probably need to look up a fucking video.
I think that's kind of where I draw the line,
If
too.
if it was a standalone expansion you could play on its own, that would be different. This just to me says how bad 2024 has been.
Yeah.
It feels like they're doing this because they need another great game to slot in there, and they didn't want to put Veilguard in.
Yeah, I couldn't even play Shadow of the Erdtree. I had not completed the prerequisites to play it. So I couldn't even play it if I wanted to.
I did.
Even though I played Elden Ring for probably 25 or 30 hours.
You didn't do the two specific things you have to do.
Right.
And I'd only done one of them.
Right.
I didn't even realize
And you had played the living crap out of it.
I didn't realize you had to beat that one guy twice.
Yeah. If it were standalone DLC, they just tacked on at the end of the game, I would be okay with it. But it is the fact that you have to have done a lot of stuff in the base game before you can even access it.
Like if you can play something expansion wise, separate from the game, even if apart from the game, or even if at a push, pick it from the menu, which I don't prefer. Yeah, I prefer the way they did the DLC, and I like integrating it into the main game the way they did it here. But it's not a new game. It's not a different game. It's the game that won last year. And renominating the fucking DLC for this is bullshit.
My guess, too, is that a lot of the content that is in Shadow of the Erdtree was already completed when they released the base game.
A good amount of it. I mean,
not all of it, obviously.
They didn't reinvent the wheel on this. It's just more Elden Ring in a lot of ways. And it's I didn't finish it. I mean,
that's good enough for a lot of these editors, man, that are crazy Elden
I
From
guess,
Software fans.
But it's just the most boring, it's stupid. It's stupid. I don't know what else to say, man. I know it was kind of a weak year, but there's all these other games you could
nominate. It wasn't that weak.
All these other games you could nominate instead of just giving another hand job to FromSoftware. I don't no one's taking anything away from Shadow of the Erdtree by just saying, give it a best DLC category and call it a fucking day. It's not a Game of the Year nominee. That's ridiculous.
Daredevil619 says the fighting game community is really underrepresented at the Game Awards. I don't see any Evo champs in the Best Esports Athlete nomination. You also don't see really good fighting games breaking through as a nominee for Game of the Year.
No,
I don't know if that will ever happen, Matt.
A lot of this, I don't know who's actually, who's on the judging panel.
I used to be.
But they seem to be pretty young and pretty niche in terms of, not niche, but they are pigeonholed into the mainstream whatever, and fighting games just aren't in that stream.
I went from being on the editorial panel and being somebody who helped with the process of collecting the votes from the editors and was a part of all the meetings for all that stuff to not even being on the editorial committee.
Yeah. Because
I just left my old job. That's it. Now all of a sudden I'm not qualified enough to vote on Game of the Year because I left the job. I mean, I don't know. To me, I think that says something about the process. I don't know what, but it says something about it. I was fine for years, and then all of a sudden I don't work at Game Trailers anymore, and all of a sudden my opinion isn't relevant. It doesn't matter.
I got news for Jeff. Nobody's opinion is relevant in gaming media anymore.
Yeah, it kind of is that way.
I guess maybe it's appropriate that they're going to great lengths to nominate Elden Ring for whatever, because all those games are about dying worlds, and I guess it really speaks to them.
Well, what it really shows you, though, is that he picks those people if they can help him. So if they work at a big publication with a big audience, he wants them to be a judge because they'll go on their podcast like I'm on right now. Right. Be like, oh, I'm a judge, and this is the process, and everybody should be hooked in with the Game Awards, and go to GameAwards.com. And...
I just think, again, like, every year they have the whole, like, how do you improve the Game Awards? Like, get rid of the awards. Because it's all bullshit. Like no one, you're not fucking fooling anyone. It's this list of all these things. It's like, okay, and how many of these, 50%, 60% are just going to be listed off?
Right.
Like off the cuff,
like
notice, in the middle of a rap. Well,
you have to check the website.
Well, Jeff speed runs his way to intro the next fucking commercial. It's a fucking commercial. Just call it Jeff Keighley's non-denominational winter ad buy, and fucking run a bunch of trailers, and the same number of people will watch. No one fucking gives a shit about this. Yeah. And then don't give me that shit. And I've seen people make this criticism, and then other people like on Twitter and stuff are like, well, the game devs seem to care about it. I'm like, no, they fucking don't.
Some of them do.
It's a huge exposure thing. Sure, it's a good marketing bullet point, but I guarantee you the awards developers really care about are DICE and GDC.
Yeah,
because those are their peers. That's the Oscars. This is the Golden Globes at best. It's really the MTV Video Music Awards. And no one's going to turn their nose up at an MTV Video Music Award in the height of the MTV Video Music Awards, because that was a lot of young eyes. It was a demographic you needed.
You'd be surprised, though. Like, I worked on the Spike Video Game Awards for 7 years or whatever, which is the precursor to the Game Awards. And when you work on that show, you see the real stuff. You see the real reactions. You're in the green room. Like, they care, man.
They care in the sense that anyone likes recognition for their hard work, but if the Game Awards went away tomorrow, no one would have their lives changed.
No, that's true. And I would agree with you that they do weight sort of the awards from their peers more than they do from
100%.
Editorial. But they do care. Like, they would come off stage and, like, when they thought no one was looking, you could see they were, like, hype. Like, they cared.
Because you get to put it on the box, and a lot of people saw
you get to go back to your office, and you get to put it on the mantle, and all the people who work with you at your company get to walk in every day and it's like, wow, we did something great.
I'm not saying it's not a nice thing. I'm saying it's stupid and irrelevant.
Yeah.
And if you got rid of the awards function of this show, not a single human being's life would change except the people that have to arrange this complete bullshit from the judge's side, because they wouldn't have to waste their time on
would
this
lose
thing.
a huge contract.
Oh, yeah, that would probably... I mean, they only make, like, 20 of them. I mean, and... It's, or whatever number of awards there are.
I don't know if they have to pay for them. Like, in some award shows, like, you get maybe one award. If you want more, you have to pay.
Yeah,
for
most
the
awards you get two, like big
depending
ones.
on the
you
show.
Get two, and then if you want more, you can pay for more.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I know the Oscars, I think is I think they give you 4 for certain categories.
That makes sense.
And if you want. I don't know if you can get more if you want more. Sometimes
really?
some of the Oscars might just be like, you get 4 and you fucking fight over them.
I can see that. Those are prestigious.
Most of the film festivals I was at, if you want the award, you pay for the award.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, you have to pay for it.
They'll give you a little sheet of paper, but if you want the trophy,
you have to buy it.
Like we wanted the Silver Dragon Cinematography Award for our cinematographer for one of our things, and that cost like $400. Because they had to ship it from China. They had to ship it from Shanghai, and it never showed up.
Well, I asked you the question already, like, which game stood out for you? You said Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. For me, it's Black Myth Wukong. Like,
no, that's also
it's
kind
a
of
good game, but it's not a Game of the Year material.
Not
like,
really, no.
I'm surprised that is on there. And
I'm not surprised it's on it, because I knew it was probably in the running, just because it's a darling among some critics and among a lot of the weirdos online. It's a solid game.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad game.
But,
we're talking about Game of the Year
but
here.
We're talking about like this and Stellar Blade were on the short list at this point. And I'm glad Stellar Blade pretty much got shafted, because that game was mediocre as hell.
However, I would pick Dragon Age the Veilguard over Black Myth
Wukong. Dragon Age being shut out of even Best RPG is fucking crazy.
What the hell?
Fucking crazy.
I don't get it. Why?
Now to be clear, everyone in the category of Best RPG are all great games.
Yeah, they're all good games.
Except for Shadow of the Erdtree, which shouldn't be there because it's DLC, and that should be Dragon Age Veilguard. The only nomination Veilguard got was accessibility, which isn't wrong, but like part of that has to be that it came out so recently that a bunch of the people on the panel haven't played it enough to judge it.
That'd be my guess. Yeah.
And
I hope that's why.
Which is stupid. Like there's a
But they played this?
This was a long time ago.
I mean, it was a month or two ago, but...
And this is over much faster than Veilguard is.
I don't know. This game, for me, really stands out as the one of them all that I was like, wait a minute, like...
I mean, in terms of things that are actual games, yes, and not, like, integrated DLC.
Yeah.
But if I was going to pull one out of the Game of the Year list, it would be Shadows of the Erd Tree, because it's not a fucking game.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good year for RPGs, but every year is a good year for RPGs because it is the most popular genre in the industry. It is the genre that sells the most, so it is the genre that's being made the most. So yeah, best RPG is going to be tight every year. My impressions of Dragon Age are way, I guess, higher than the consensus. I don't know. I guess that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, which doesn't make a lot of sense because it was very highly rated. Like, I don't...
Yeah, it finished at, what, like an 83 or something like that?
Yeah, it's not like it was definitely as much in the running in terms of Metacritic as anything in those top.
Yeah. The other thing that stood out for me, Matt, is, I don't know if you noticed or not, but every game but one for the Game of the Year nominees were made in Asia, which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
Astrobot, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor, all made in Asia. And then you have Balatro is the only outlier there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of awesome to see Japan.
I'm glad they recognize
Balatro,
but not all those are Japan.
Yeah.
I would put Veilguard over Metaphor Re Fantasio in 5 seconds.
I think a lot of people would disagree with you on that one, or
I'm sure they would, but they're wrong.
Yeah. Though it seems like the one that everybody pointed to for the RPG category was Like a Dragon that shouldn't have made the cut.
I mean, I like that game. Don't like it as much as Dragon Age.
Yeah, to me they're in two different classes, honestly, for me.
Or yeah, I mean,
it's a good game, but
like I'm not against recognizing the Yakuza games for the kind of inexplicable continued excellence of that series, but like it's an odd inclusion when you've got Veilguard sitting right there. It makes me wonder what the fuck is happening over there at that panel. Like I would not put that in over Veilguard.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I simply wouldn't, as much as I like the Yakuza stuff.
Now, Metaphor is a better question. I know I liked it more than you did, for sure. To me, this is a little closer and harder to...
Somewhat, but I mean, I just don't... this is just Persona with the interesting part removed to me. Like I don't... Once you take the urban fantasy out of the Persona formula, it turns out... I didn't really know this until I played this game, but it turns out I don't care anymore. This is just more fantasy Drek to me. And, like, you gotta find... I mean, look, I'd also describe a lot of Dragon Age like that. Not Veilguard. I think Veilguard makes it its own thing in a way that the other Dragon Age games haven't, really. But... like, you got to work pretty hard to keep my interest when it comes to like kind of your generic fantasy thing. And while I wouldn't say that this is generic, it's still...
It's more generic than Persona.
Certainly. And it just keeps going. And
some people like that about these games.
Yeah, I know, but it's just... There's a thing to be said for pacing, and I know it's a cliched criticism for every kind of media now, but like there's a point at which you look at how many hours you've spent doing this, and you look at like where you are in kind of the story, and then you look at how much more there has to be because you recognize how many fucking menu options there are, and like a bunch of them are still question marks, and you're like, we're not even done with the fucking intro yet.
I mean, Persona's like that. Like you get to hour like 30 or 40, and you're like, why am I doing this? It's become like muscle memory at this point.
But for some reason, when you set that in like the urban fantasy setting, like I don't mind it as much.
Yeah.
And with this, it's like, there's a bunch of fantasy RPGs I could go play that are not going to like take quite so long to get to the fucking point.
Yeah.
Or I could just play, if I want the mechanics of this game, I can just go play Persona.
You probably haven't finished the last one because they're so damn big.
No, absolutely not. If I was going to do any of that, I would take the time to go back and play Persona 4 Golden again.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where it kind of peaked for me.
Yeah.
But like, it's just and I get it. Like the production values are great. Like people love this formula. Sure. But like, I don't know. I think, if you're talking about like which ones would I pull out of the best RPG or Game of the Year category to make room for other things, this wouldn't be one of them. I think this game earned pretty much, certainly in this year's release schedule, this game earned its place in those categories.
Yeah.
But Erd Tree out because it's not a game.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
Like a Dragon, I could definitely see replacing that. Black Myth Wukong, I could definitely replace that with Veilguard.
I'm really surprised that people don't like Dragon Age of Veilguard more than they do.
That's why I don't understand what happened here. Like it has to be too recent.
What is the big criticism of the game? I haven't been able to figure it out. I mean, there's the whole weirdo woke thing or whatever, but like not everybody's like that.
There isn't really. I 100% no question. It's too recent.
Yeah,
it's a big long story driven RPG.
It is a beast. Yeah.
that
But so are three of the other games.
Right, but those all came out months ago.
Yeah,
this one came out 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it hurt it. I mean, to someone's point earlier in the chat, the election stuff may have overshadowed the game. And,
and also, when did these get finalized?
Yeah.
You know, it came out October 31st. At the very earliest, they had, these guys had the code for this 2 weeks earlier.
Nightwing 3060 says, I had 100 hours in Persona 5 and I can't remember what I did. I'm right there with you, man. Like, I got to, after the 30 or 40 hour mark, it just becomes like this thing that you do.
Persona 5 was even worse than because every single act is the same thing.
Right.
It's like every person whose mind palace you have to like rob or whatever. It's all the same. You go in, you do the thing, you find a new ally, you explain to the ally the premise of the game in an excruciating 30-minute fucking cutscene, and then you go like fight the boss and beat the thing, and then everything goes back to some new form of the status quo with the new character integrated into your social group, and then it starts over, and it does that 5 fucking times.
Yeah.
And it's just, you at a certain point, you just can't remember what's happening anymore.
It also got really hard at the end. To the point where I was really like struggling to get through a lot of the later battles. I finished that game, and it was the last like 10th of that game, hard as nails.
Man, I
almost gave up.
I was in the final dungeon, and I just never reloaded it again.
Because it became impossible. It started to become about luck. Like
I didn't find it that hard. I just was bored.
Yeah.
I just thought I just didn't care what happened at the end of this story. I'd spent 100 hours playing it, and the crazy thing is, like, I kept, they put out Royal Edition, and they put out, and they're putting this out,
and all the spin-offs.
And when this came out, Metaphor Refantasio came out, I'm like, I don't know if it's been enough time since a Persona game for me to really jump in. And I look back and like Persona 5 came out like 9 years ago, and I'm just like, oh wow,
I still remember it.
That game really burned me out.
I mean, I remember, it's like in the comment in the chat.
Like I don't even like that color red anymore.
It's like I don't remember hardly any of the details about it, and I played it for dozens and dozens of hours. Like
it's just this somewhere in the back of my head at all times in my life. There's going to be that fucking cat. It's saying "gentleman thief" like over and over. It's just like phantom thieves, phantom thieves, phantom thieves.
Yeah.
Like I appreciate that you have a fixation, but like you don't have to have inflicted on all of us.
Yeah. J. Reed Vic says the only main criticism I've heard of Veilguard is from hardcore old school Dragon Age fans who have story or gameplay choice beefs. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, though, if in terms of like a fan complaint, I think the one thing you can really level at it is that it doesn't do the Mass Effect 3 thing, where Mass Effect 3 pretty much referenced every single choice you'd made in 1 and 2 in some way. Even if it was just like a throwaway line from a nearby NPC that you didn't even you heard someone mention something like, oh, that was that thing in Mass Effect 2 where I did that thing and they're mentioning that. Like, there's not really any of that in Veilguard. Like, Veilguard has 3 specific choices you make in Inquisition that are referenced. And even then, like, there's major things that happen in Inquisition that just are glossed over in Veilguard. Like, there's a big thing in Inquisition about who becomes the new Divine. It's one of 3 characters. And whoever they are that you end up picking, they get changed, because popes change their name. So the Divine renames herself Divine Victoria. So Divine Victoria is referenced several times in Veilguard, but at no point is it actually made clear which character it is, because the game doesn't know which character you chose.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing where it's just sort of making this very vague thing.
Yeah.
And so it didn't become kind of the celebration of all the choices you'd made that Mass Effect 3 was, or even Inquisition was. Inquisition referenced a bunch of that stuff. The Hawk shows up. There's references to the hero Ferelden. Like, they know, they did that whole Dragon Age, world building website that which still exists, by the way. When I loaded up my Inquisition to replay it this summer, my world state was still saved in there.
Wow, that's great.
It was 10 years later.
That's crazy.
So well done on that one.
Yeah, but they didn't carry it forward with this.
No, none of that carried forward. The only thing you get to do is the 3 decisions that happen. Who the Inquisitor's dating. I think which the mages and Templars you sided with, and like one other thing, and then you get to design what the Inquisitor looked like. And that was one of the big complaints I've seen from people who just, who love the game. And of course, there's always going to be people that think Dragon Age Inquisition, which is one of the worst things I've ever played, is like the way the game should play. And if that was true, then why isn't Greedfall 2 more popular?
Yeah.
Because that's what that is. You want Dragon Age Origins? Go fucking play Greedfall 2 and have a ball with that. But everybody who liked Greedfall 1 has basically been like, oh, no, that's not what we want. We're going over here.
Right.
Yeah, Greedfall should be evolving into Veilguard. It should not be regressing into Origins.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't see a lot of, like, criticism. Yeah, I mean, you can like or dislike the story or like whatever. Obviously, stories are stories. But, like, Veilguard is great. Is a great game. Like, I don't see a way around that. And, like, look, I have seen way worse games that were regarded way worse by various communities and various review groups get nominated for shit in this awards over the last 10 years than this. So
yeah.
I don't really understand. My only explanation is that it was just too recent.
What do you think is going to happen if Balatro wins Game of the Year?
It won't.
But what if it did?
It won't.
I didn't think that The Walking Dead was going to win Game of the Year either back at the Spike VGAs years and years ago, and it did.
Yeah, well, that was 10 years ago. Balatro has no shot.
You don't think so?
Nope.
I think it might be the dark horse winner.
Not a chance in hell.
How come?
Because this is between Final Fantasy Rebirth and Astrobot.
You think so?
100%.
Interesting. I mean, those are the two choices that I really have no...
I'm super happy that Balatro got nominated.
Yeah.
Like I was hoping that Balatro would win Best Indie Game. I didn't really think...
It would even have a shot.
I thought they would snub it for the actual Game of the Year list. I'm glad they didn't because it belongs there, 100%. But to win, no. This is between Astrobot and Final Fantasy.
Interesting.
Always has been. It's very funny to me that in this year with kind of like, oh, Sony hasn't put anything out. Sony doesn't.
Yeah.
The two top Game of the Year contenders are Sony.
Where it's exclusives, yeah. It's crazy. Yep. So anyway, there you go. That's a little bit of a preview for the Game Awards 2024.
There's no Nintendo games in there.
No. Nintendo got pretty snubbed.
They didn't put much out this year,
well,
I guess. But
Nintendo put a lot out.
Not
they were
of that
all
level.
like A- games. They weren't like from their top shelf.
A- is pretty kind.
Think?
B+.
Yeah.
Their A game is
better than that.
Yeah,
no, you're right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Okay. What is
like
it?
Pikmin 4 is A game.
Yeah.
They didn't put out a Pikmin 4
No,
this year.
they didn't. December 10th, is that right for the Game Awards?
Sure.
It's around there.
Let's go with that. We're not going to be able to escape it one way or the other. So.
And obviously, we'll recap the Game Awards here on GameFace. And then we'll do our own Game of the Year awards around the last episode of the year. That's usually the week of December 15th to 20th. I usually fly back to the East Coast around December 18th or 19th. So we usually do our Game of the Year awards right before that. We publish it for you guys before we head out for the holidays. So look forward to that. But anyway, there's your little bit of a preview for the Game Awards. And I do think it's December 10th. I'm not 100% sure about that. 12th, I guess. Fire Native is saying. December 12th?
Okay.
Yeah, I was close, but no cigar.
Yeah,
so,
I think that I remember him saying that.
Okay, so December 12th, and obviously we'll be back here to recap. Mostly, not even the awards. We'll be back here to recap the debuts. Because to Matt's point earlier, that's why people watch. Like, people watch because we may see Switch 2, or we may see Naughty Dog's.
We're not going to see Switch 2, but like, it's a commercial.
People will think they might see Switch 2.
I mean, that might be a reason they would watch, yes, but those people are stupid.
I don't
Nintendo is not going to premiere their new hardware on Jeff's show.
No.
They are going to put it in one of their own directs they have 100% control over.
Yeah, they don't want to have leave anything
like,
chance.
Did you just fucking get here?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever met Nintendo before?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yep.
Like, if they'd already shown Switch 2, that would be different.
Yeah.
Like, they might give a little extra peek or another game or a launch. Maybe Reggie would have a little thing with Jeff or something. But no, not while there's no official announcement beyond, we are not announcing this yet.
Yeah. Now, you could get Naughty Dog, first look at Naughty Dog's new game.
Yeah, that could happen.
Yeah.
Like, that could be.
So I think people will tune in for that.
And
we will as well.
After all this fucking horse shit, there better be a FromSoftware announcement. I'll tell you that much. You better be getting some tit for tat for breaking that fucking rule.
Okay, next
garbage.
Last week's show, we reviewed the PlayStation 5 Pro. Speaking of which, anything changed over the last week now that you've been using it for...
No, I mean, using it's a strong word.
Yeah.
I loaded up some stuff just to see what it like. I reinstalled Jedi Survivor to see what that looked like, and the answer is bad.
Well, that's what this whole topic's about.
There's a bunch of stuff that really didn't get improved very much.
Well, Matt, it's not that some stuff didn't get improved. It's that some stuff looks worse.
No, Jedi Survivor does, in fact, look worse. Has a lot of shimmering on it.
So does the Silent Hill 2 remake. I saw Digital Foundry's...
I don't have the PlayStation version of that. So.
Digital Foundry's report on that today. They did great side-by-side comparison split-screen stuff. And it showed, like, the main character standing next to a puddle. And on PS5, the puddle looked amazing. On PS5 Pro, like, all the lighting and the shadows around and on the puddle are like shaking back and forth.
Yeah, that is the PSSR.
Yeah.
It's the frame generation.
Yeah, it can't figure it out.
Well, only good news is that the frame generation stuff is machine learning, so it will get better. The downside is that I believe the way it works on the PlayStation, you have to update the game to take advantage of the new version.
They do, yeah.
And I think that's what happened with Jedi Survivor, is because I believe the last update to Jedi Survivor, which was mid-September, was before the new update to PSSR. So the problem is probably that Jedi Survivor is not using the current version of PSSR, which would be improved. Now, there's only so far you can take Jedi Survivor, because apparently that game's just never going to work right on anything.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know what... I mean, I know the main problem on the PC version is the hitching, and that is just Unreal. Like, that's just the Unreal Engine, and there's nothing you can... Like Epic has to fix that.
Yeah.
Like, apparently there's not only so much you can do to mitigate that from the developer side. So I don't know. I don't know why we're stuck with that. On that, but like this for whatever reason, this game has been a technical obstacle course just the whole time. Not to take away from it, because I like it a lot, but like I don't know why this has been such a hard time for everybody.
Well, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, same deal. So there's 3 games that are having problems on PS5 Pro. It's Call of Duty Black Ops 6, it's Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and it's a Silent Hill 2 remake. This is not what I think PlayStation had in mind when it...
Yeah, this is the one where if you run it at 120, it looks fine. If you run it at 60, you get all the shimmering and all the PSSR. Yeah. Because the 120 mode doesn't use PSSR.
Right. It feels like it's coming in hot a little bit.
A little bit, I think, yeah. I mean, some of that is just, I think it will get better over time, because it is a learning process for the PSSR thing. But yeah, it's I have a very hard time feeling that if you threw $700 to $800 at this, and this is what you got out of it, that you'd be particularly happy right now.
Well, here's the crazy thing, Matt, is that like...
I'm not happy, but I was already not happy, so I didn't want to buy it anyway, but I didn't feel like I had a choice.
Well, it's a horrible advertisement for the PlayStation 5 Pro, but a lot of times we talk about how, the people that that's for won't even know that this is happening. And normally that's the case when you talk about the casuals, but let's be honest, the audience for PlayStation 5 Pro is
not
the
casual,
core. They're the core. They're the
the
people who absolutely will know that these 3
certainly
games...
on day one, these are the people that will notice this,
yeah,
for sure.
And they will also follow the news closely enough to know that there are 3 high-profile games that do not look better, in fact, look worse on the PlayStation 5 Pro.
Yeah, including one that like just came out, so you're going to be very well acquainted with what it looked like on your previous PlayStation.
Yeah.
And then you're going to turn that on and be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's not great.
Yeah, I don't think it's what PlayStation had planned on to design.
Probably not. I mean,
PS5 Pro. Especially when you have Digital Foundry, it's like a watchdog, man. As soon as it gets a little scent of something funky going on, immediately it rolls out features on all 3 of those games running on PS5.
I like
it just rubs their nose in it.
Jedi Survivor, but at least ray tracing's on.
Right.
It's like, yeah, okay. As long as you don't move, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. I think ultimately, though, this is a big story now. I don't think it'll matter.
It's a hiccup, but like it's a pretty embarrassing thing to happen right after you're launching your overpriced nonsense upgrade console.
Yeah, Sony, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't tell someone to not buy a PS5 Pro.
But the LAN cable doesn't disconnect all the time.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted. So here we are.
That problem was solved. Okay, next up, we got some information coming out of Blizzard. I think we just talked about StarCraft Ghost not all that long ago on the show.
We're not doing This Is an Xbox.
Oh, you're right. I totally missed that.
I don't even know what that is.
So this week, Xbox released a trailer called This Is an Xbox. And I'll just play it right now for the people who haven't seen it. And it's basically the first time that Microsoft has really pushed the idea of, we don't care about consoles so much anymore.
Not the first time we've pushed it.
Yeah, you can play our stuff wherever you want to. And if you don't want that to be an Xbox, we're totally okay with that. Like, whatever you need to do.
We are all Xboxes.
I mean, that's... Hey, so here's the thing. My Xbox fans freaked out. They're like, oh my God, what does this mean? They're not consoles?
It means it's an ecosystem, not a console. It's been like... That's been pretty obvious for years now.
I think people are just struggling to accept the new model and the new goals of Xbox.
Yeah, well, the console wars are over. They've been over for a long time.
The fanboys are, I think, struggling to get over it. I think that's really the problem.
I think that's true. I think you're right.
Because I think for a lot of them, it's kind of their identity online. Yeah. It's like what they do all day, every day.
If your identity is Xbox, A, go to therapy. B, like, this is pretty inherently an admission that that's not a thing anymore.
And I think that's why it's hard for them to accept. Because, look, if you're the kind of guy who's going on social media every day defending Xbox against Sony ponies or Nintendo dolts or whatever the hell they call Nintendo fanboys, I mean, and all of a sudden, Xbox is like, you know what? We're not really doing that anymore. Where does that leave you? You're just like, my whole identity is gone. I think it's hard for some people to deal with it, honestly.
Yeah.
To admit that ultimately Xbox lost. Because some of these fans have been fans since the first Xbox.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a fan of Xbox. I like a lot of what they do. You know, Xbox 360 is one of my favorite consoles of all time.
Yeah.
No question.
Me too.
But it's a corporate.
I live in reality.
A corporation. Like they don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit what you like or what. They're going to put out whatever they're going to put out. You know, that's why we got the Xbox One. The Xbox One was for basically nobody.
Yeah.
Except for a bunch of
people that they wanted.
Guys in boardrooms with marketing bullet points, sure, but not for anyone who actually had a use case for it.
They were for what they hoped the market was.
They made up a group of people they thought it was for that
didn't exist. Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, and just, you know, play your games where you're going to play your games, and Xbox seems to have realized that. You can't catch Sony at this point.
Well, if your model is Game Pass, like, why would you ever want to lock it to one platform? Right. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Like, you would want Game Pass on PlayStation.
On everything.
Like,
on Switch, on all of it. Yeah. And that may happen. So
I think they would like it to happen. Yeah. I mean, the only thing stopping that from happening is Sony.
Yeah.
Sony would have to agree to it. That's all there is to it.
But if Sony can make a 30% cut for doing nothing off all the... I mean...
And that would probably make a lot more sense for Microsoft than, like, trying to sell a competing console that they can't even get a third of the sales on. Where does that turn around? How does that turn around in the next generation? It doesn't.
I saw a report yesterday that said that PlayStation outsold Xbox 6-1 last year.
Right. Yeah.
Whew. That is an ass whooping unlike we've ever seen in the console wars, Matt.
I mean, unless you want to get into, like, 3DO.
I mean, even the Xbox One, it was like 2 or 3-1.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, that's numbers on the level of, like, those, like, weirdo third Johnny-come-lately, like, TurboGrafx.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's stuff that you would buy at, like, Radio Shack.
Yeah, no shade to TurboGrafx. I liked a lot of stuff on TurboGrafx and PC Engine, but it never stood a chance.
Yeah. Yep.
It's very funny to go back to some of those old game magazines I have. Like, VG and CE was really gung-ho on the TurboGrafx.
Yeah.
And, like, the pre-release hype in the magazines for TurboGrafx and all this stuff about how everybody just thought, like, they gave Legendary Axe Game of the Year. Legendary Axe.
I mean, there was a magazine that gave Sonic 2006 a 9 out of 10.
That was Dave Halverson. No one cares what Dave Halverson
He still gave it a 9.
Of course he did, but this is the guy they gave LSD to before he went into play Cybermorph. That's why that review is all weird and talking about shit from the Jaguar release. And he's like it's like Atari is back, come pet the cat. And like years later, the guys who like worked there were like, yeah, we put LSD in his coffee before he went in to review that game. That's why that review is so fucking strange.
Wow, that's crazy to admit.
But this is also the guy who, like, when they got paid. This is all from Shidoshi, like one of the people who worked there at the time, posting on Gaff years ago. When they got paid, the whole staff would leave the office and race each other to the bank
to get your check cash before the money was gone.
Before the money ran out. And one time, there was no money because he had spent the whole payroll on a life-size statue of Sonic the Hedgehog for his office. Like...
There's lots of stories about that guy.
Oh yeah,
and have been for a while.
The 9.5 for Sonic 2006 is when, and then
probably the worst review of all time.
Might really well be. And then I think once when he got called on it and all the stuff that they promised they would fix didn't get fixed, he dropped the score to an 8.5.
That's great. So anyway, I think what we're dealing with here is that it's a huge change, and if you've been an Xbox fan all this time, it's probably a little hard to accept that what you've been rooting for has just kind of disappeared, and Microsoft doesn't care about that anymore, even though you still do. So I just feel like it's a little bit of a transition period here. It's probably going to take a good year, 18 months before people really get over it.
If Microsoft sticks to like the old model, they die.
Yeah, they would have died.
Xbox dies.
Yeah,
you can no longer justify the cost of keeping that brand around. Like you turn the brand into an ecosystem, and the Xbox name persists.
you also have to realize that Microsoft is very familiar with that whole concept
100%.
because it turned Office into an ecosystem.
Right.
It's now a subscription thing that you pay for every month.
It exists because of an ecosystem called Windows.
Yeah, you can't buy Microsoft Word anymore, which really sucks.
Yeah, it does.
You have to instead subscribe to the whole Office suite, 365 or whatever. It's total
You're
crap.
like, fuck you, I don't
Same
need
deal
Excel.
with Adobe Premiere. Like, you can't just buy
All
Premiere
the Adobe
anymore.
stuff is not.
Yeah, it's a subscription now. I hate it.
Adobe should probably have some kind of class action suit.
Maybe.
Maybe it already does. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like the Adobe thing is bullshit.
It really
on
is.
a level that you really can't fully get into here.
Yeah, and you can't even find like old copies of it on eBay anymore because everyone's bought them.
Yeah.
So you just have to pay for the subscription. Anyway, times are changing for Xbox. I get it's probably hard if you've been an Xbox fan all this time to kind of accept what's going on, but it's not going to change. No matter how angry you get about it, Microsoft is not going to go back to the old strategy. It's just not happening. So
There is no strategy there.
yeah,
Like there's
for
nothing,
them,
there's nothing there.
There's nothing there. There's nothing it can do. So, okay, next up, the
Why
story.
are you so mad about it? You might not have to spend $500 on an Xbox.
Seriously, like it's just. I think it's just
Or
ingrained
$800
in
once the
people's
tariffs go into
minds,
play.
like the hardware sales, which console sold more. It's this way of thinking that's pretty much going to disappear here over the next like year and a half. So
I mean, I get it. It's like if an NFL team went away.
Yeah.
And it was just like the Browns are just going to be all teams. in
NFL
the
teams.
Yeah,
And now the Browns are part of the Steelers.
Yeah, we're going to put a Browns player in every team in the NFL, and now we'll be everywhere, and you can all root for the Browns no matter who's playing. Like,
That's a great analogy,
I get
actually.
that would be
Yeah.
difficult to accept if you are in Cleveland. But,
Well,
but maybe you shouldn't have rooted for Cleveland in the first place.
or difficult for all the other teams that don't want a Cleveland
or
Brown
you don't
on their
want
team.
Cleveland. Yeah, we don't like green. We don't want the.
We don't like the
Xbox thing.
Browns.
Yeah, we don't like the Browns.
Okay,
God, why would you name the team Brown? It's
because
just Brown.
Paul Brown owned
I know,
it.
but
Yeah.
it's still like
It's
no one
really
remembers
dumb.
that guy as well. Now it's just like, why did you name your team after shit?
It was not forward thinking at all.
No,
like because
not
you
at
realize
all.
he's going to die someday, and you're still going to have the team name the Browns.
Browns. Like at best, it could be like a Charlie Brown reference. And what is
Yeah.
Charlie Brown famous for? Losing.
Erebus says, for all the howling, it's not like they're stopping making consoles. That's true. I mean,
Yeah.
in the midst of all this stuff happening, Phil Spencer has said over and over again, we are still going to make consoles.
Yeah, if you still need to spend your money on your little totem with the little
Yeah.
X symbol on it, you'll be able to do that.
But I don't think it's about them. I don't think it's about them having the console. It's the console selling to everybody and being successful that they care about.
Well, there's nothing you can do about that because that didn't happen and it's not going to happen.
Yep, that's true.
I guess if Sony just stops making games for 4 years, that could happen.
Which also isn't going to happen.
Probably not. Although it would be nice to see some announcements.
Yeah, yep. Okay, next up, the story that I accidentally teased before Matt got me back on track on our rundown. I was talking about StarCraft Ghost, which was a third-person shooter set in the StarCraft universe. It was kind of one of these legendary games that people were like, "Oh yeah, that existed," because Blizzard talked about it.
I saw it.
Well, 4 years ago,
That was around when I started working in this industry.
I captured
StarCraft
this
Ghost
footage
goes way
man.
back.
4 years ago, remember the whole build leaked.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget because they just kind of came and went. But you can go and play it right now if you want to. StarCraft Ghost. There's tons of footage all over the place.
That I saw back in the day. I saw.
Oh yeah, they demoed it to people. I mean, you can play it and almost finish the game. It was very close to complete. I still don't know why Blizzard didn't just go forward and release it and finish it. But anyway, so people have like pined for a StarCraft-based first-person shooter or a shooter in general ever since they knew about StarCraft Ghost. And again, it was like this urban legend in the industry about StarCraft Ghost. Oh, Blizzard was going to make a shooter, blah, blah, blah. Well, as it turns out, it looks like Blizzard is coming back around to the idea, and it is working on a first-person shooter. People found the job listing about a month ago, if I remember correctly, and people assumed, maybe it's the StarCraft shooter or whatever, because people were thinking about StarCraft Ghost. And this week, it was basically confirmed that the game is real. There are job listings now for the game saying that they are working on a first-person shooter. Now, it still doesn't say that it's a StarCraft game. People have just kind of jumped to that logical, or maybe it's not logical, but to that conclusion, I think because of this game.
Yeah, like the only real evidence seems to be like one time they made a shooter of StarCraft that they didn't release, so that has to be what this is, which is not actual logic.
No, it's really not. It could be a Warcraft shooter.
Could be anything.
Yeah, it really could be.
Could be a new game.
Yeah, I mean, my guess
could be a single player campaign driven Overwatch game.
It's true. Yeah, we really don't know. But the internet is running with it's a StarCraft first person shooter. I just want to play a shooter from Blizzard. Honestly,
I don't care.
No, what? I mean, I want to play. I'm assuming it's not going to be a hero shooter.
Blizzard. Blizzard now is not Blizzard as what you're thinking of Blizzard. That
might be better though, if they're making a first-person shooter. It's not a genre they were well versed in.
But that's what I mean by what does Blizzard have to do with it? It's just a bunch of people that never made a first-person shooter before, and a company that's never made a first-person shooter before, and it's not even any of the people that made Blizzard as great as it was.
Well, I mean, they made Overwatch.
Yeah,
but it's a hero shooter.
But this is a different thing. I don't. There's no pedigree here, so I don't know what the excitement is other than the potential IPs that could be in play.
Yes, that's what it is. It's
but I don't give a shit about any of their IPs in the form of a shooter. A
lot of people.
I mean, I guess one of the reasons you could say StarCraft makes the most sense is the only one with guns,
right?
In terms of the big three,
because Warcraft, you have to use
Warcraft
bows
and
Diablo
spells. Shooter don't really make a lot of sense,
right?
Yep. You could do a rework of Project Titan / Overwatch. I guess if you really want to fuck people up, you could do the Lost Vikings shooter. I don't know what else is really out there.
I mean, they don't have a lot of other IP. Let's be honest.
No, it could be an original thing. I
mean, you're probably right.
Who does that anymore?
Probably, if it is based on an existing IP, it's got to be StarCraft. Otherwise, nothing else makes sense. Unless you're going to be using bows and rocks in Warcraft.
Yeah, which seems like you're asking for it at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I am always excited to check out a new entry in one of my favorite genres from a new developer. I guess is the way I would put it. Because a lot of times, maybe new developers fail at the fundamentals of a genre, but a lot of times they find something very unique and a new angle on something. And so that's what I'm kind of hoping for with this game. But to your point, I wouldn't get my hopes up too high because, again, Blizzard's never really made a first-person shooter that wasn't Overwatch.
I mean, my guess if it is StarCraft, it's going to be Space Marine with StarCraft juice.
Would be my guess too. But anyway, it is official at this point that Blizzard is at least working on a first-person shooter that is not Overwatch at this point. So they're just now hiring for it. My guess is we probably won't learn anything about it. Best case scenario,
I mean, the only
maybe we never hear about it.
I mean, we can hope that Rod Ferguson is on this one.
I doubt it though.
Probably not, or at least maybe they're emailing him once in a while.
It sounds like Diablo is a full-time job.
I would think so.
Yeah, trying to keep it alive and supported.
But at the very least, I hope at some point they let him play it and get his opinion on something because a man can put a shooter together.
Araba shares your sentiment. He says Rod Ferguson is in the building and he has a pretty good pedigree at landing shooters. That's absolutely true. Araba says that the job listing is for an open world shooter, not just a shooter. It's also open world, which obviously means it's not going to be another hero shooter. Emperor Dread says, I remember a Penny Arcade comic about StarCraft Ghost being in development when I was still in school. Yeah, It's been a long time. Zed Saber Juno says, get Respawn to do it. Well, they're a part of EA, so that's unfortunately not going to happen. But I understand your sentiment because Respawn does a great freaking job with first-person shooters. So anyway, that's all the information we have right now. As like we just said, my guess is we don't hear more about this best case scenario at the end of next year, but more likely probably 2026 if we hear about it at all. Because Blizzard also, by the way, develops a lot of games that never come out and just get canned. And sometimes we hear about them, sometimes we don't. So that could also happen, where we just never hear about it ever again. So we'll see. But one thing I will say is it doesn't feel like projects get canceled as often anymore as they used to. Because once you commit, it's such a big commitment, you kind of have to follow through on it.
You got to be pretty sure when you pull the trigger on the budget these days.
Yep.
Especially at the AAA level. So.
Yep, for sure. So anyway, there you go. That's the latest on a Blizzard first-person shooter, which is crazy. Here's another first-person shooter that I think most people are probably a little more excited about, or at least definitely would be excited about a sequel, and that's Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 is having, or enjoying, its 20th anniversary right now, which makes me feel really freaking old. I'm sure a lot of you feel that way, realizing that Half-Life 2 is now 20 years old. But here's the thing, Matt. It put out this awesome 2-hour documentary. Have you watched it?
No.
It's really good. It is curated to SIFTD right now. I think we curated it yesterday. Go watch it when the show's over, when you have some time. It's a 2-hour documentary about Half-Life 2. And at the end of the documentary, after 2 hours, they get people in a room who worked on episode 3, and they show the first ever footage of episode 3, and right here it is. And Matt, I have no idea why they never released Half-Life 2 Episode 3. It looks flipping awesome. So the big thing for this, and it's hard to believe that they would go above and beyond the gravity gun, which was the big hook for Half-Life 2, and sustained Half-Life 2 through Episode 2. Well, for Episode 3, for whatever reason, they thought they had to turn everything on its head and do things completely differently, come up with all these brand new concepts, and here it is. Here's the first footage of Episode 3 and the new concept for it. And maybe I don't want to necessarily spoil it until you see it in action. So here it is. It's an ice gun. So you can spray the ice, and you can use it as makeshift cover, and the enemies can shoot it, and it'll break up and bust apart and no longer be cover. But now you're starting to see Valve at work right here, where it's like, oh, no. That's just the beginning. Watch this. It's like Silver Surfer.
Well, Iceman.
Yeah. Well, Silver Surfer does the same thing, basically.
Silver Surfer uses a surfboard.
Yeah.
Iceman actually uses an ice slide.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
that.
you're right. But it's the concept is similar. Even the people at Valve describe it as they said when they built it, they were building it after Silver Surfer. That was their inspiration.
That is a very strange way to put that when you have a literal guy who creates ice slides in the same universe.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I got it from what they say in the documentary. And then look at these enemies, this crazy blob enemy that they created for Episode 3. They just will take over anything in the game. It's genius. And it's 20 years old, Matt. They did this 20 years ago.
Did they say why it didn't come out?
Yeah, so they said they got towards the end where it was almost finished, and they were getting ready to show it to people, and Left 4 Dead became like fire wagon, gotta get this game done, red alert, all hands on deck, gotta finish Left 4 Dead. So everybody who was working on, look at this shit. This is insane, dude.
It's cool.
It's freaking cool. And so what happened was they pulled everybody who was working on this and put them on Left 4 Dead. They finished Left 4 Dead, and they even said, like, we first got pulled over there. We were like, what are we doing? But then we got there, and we realized Left 4 Dead was awesome. And they're like, so we weren't pissed after we started working on it, and we finished it, and we loved the game. But after we finished the game, we started looking back at Episode 3, and for some reason, they told themselves that there was nothing there.
Weird.
And they even say themselves, like, what were we thinking? Like, but they said that basically, like, Valve was so different back then that it was like, it was almost like a startup 24/7. Yeah. That there's all these projects, you're getting pulled in all these different directions. And
from what I understood from a couple people I knew who worked there at the time, basically you chose where you wanted to work. You could just drag your desk over to some other team and work there. And so if nothing got done, nothing got done.
Yeah.
Like, because people were just working on whatever they wanted.
That's what he said. It's like you would get pulled in a bunch of different directions. And like he said, but at that point, most of the team had got pulled in at least another direction after they finished Left 4 Dead. And that none of them, they all agreed that it was a bad idea to go back and work on Episode 3. And they all regret it. Every single person in that documentary who talks about it says it was a gigantic mistake. We screwed up so bad.
It's like you got Artifact out, but you didn't think Episode 3 was worth finishing.
And then you see the stuff that they were working on, and it's freaking brilliant.
Yeah, like that. I mean, certainly at the time, there's nothing else like that.
Oh my God, it's like mind-blowing.
I mean, there's not really anything else like that now
Still.
either. But like the fact that you're doing that then.
Oh my gosh. How
silly.
Disappointing is this, man?
That's why you need leadership.
It really is. And that's the one thing, like, Valve is flat.
Like, how in the world did Gabe not look at that and be like, no, that's great, do it. Like,
I don't know. I'm like, go work on it now. No one's done it. Finish the game.
Yeah, everyone would be fine if you finished it now. And just put that out in the current engine. Like,
the person who was interviewing them didn't go there. I mean, I was just shocked that they talked about this at all in that documentary. And they waited until the end to bring it up and show the first ever footage of it. But it's freaking brilliant, the stuff that they're doing with the ice gun. And then this blob enemy is like the coolest enemy I've ever seen in a video game. Anyway, I just wanted to share this with you guys because, like, we curate this stuff. And, like, in our blurbs, we try to tell you guys, like, you need to watch this. But you guys don't. So I clip the stuff out that's really cool, and I bring it on this show so you guys can see it, and now you can say...
And you can do so much more with that now.
It's insane, Matt. Look at what they were doing with this technology back then.
Like, imagine that with all the crazy ray tracing and refracting you can do now, and like all the stuff that would be in it. And
well, they did say...
reflecting the environment and things.
They did say that this tech was used in Portal, and that was the other thing that they said. They said, we got pulled in different directions, we were all working on little stuff, and then Portal came up. and we all got put on Portal, and we used some of the tech from Episode 3 in Portal, and they said that maybe that satiated us a little bit.
I mean, you can definitely see the goo
right.
in Portal in that.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, first of all, congratulations to Valve for an amazing video game that 20 years later has still stood the test of time. And look at that tech, which is more than stood the test of time. It's still farther ahead than anything else that anyone else is making right now.
I don't know if I go that far. But...
I mean, I haven't seen a shooter that has stuff like that in it.
Well, shooters don't have any innovation anymore.
Right, that's
general.
my point.
But, like, I mean, you can do that. Like, you can certainly
Somebody
do
could.
that goo thing. It's just you don't see it too much. You'd usually save something like that for a boss nowadays, I think. Because it's a hard tech thing to pull off.
Right.
To be a normal enemy
and not have your frame rate bottom out and all that other stuff. I mean, watching it absorb the enemies, I mean, the tech there is still to this day really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, you picture what it would have looked like when it was done. And
yeah,
like probably wouldn't just have them disappearing.
Yeah, that's just a prototype. Yeah.
But like, yeah, it looked cool. I mean, it would have been a very cool. And again, I mean, I don't really agree that you need to ditch the gravity gun, but like, it's not a bad thing to introduce new concepts.
But that's what they were saying. They're like, we can't do the gravity gun again. It's like, yeah, you can.
But you could have, because it's episode 3.
awesome.
Like, save that for Half-Life 3.
Right.
Like, that would have been a good Half-Life 3 hook.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever.
Yeah, it's Valve.
Yeah.
They're strange how they do things.
Well, you know, it turns 30 this week.
A bunch of stuff.
Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting to the point where all these milestones are happening from the beginning of the industry.
Yeah.
Because it's been 30 years. So there's a lot of milestones coming up. But this was a big one. And kudos to Valve for celebrating it in the way it did. I still highly recommend going and watching the documentary. It's on SIFTD, or you can find it on YouTube if you want. If you're a Valve fan or a Half-Life fan, it is literally must-watch TV. So I highly recommend it. But there you go. That's your first ever look at Half-Life 2, Episode 3. You saw it first right here on GameFace. Next up, so this segues very nicely, Matt, into what we were just talking about. So this week, I can't remember which publication it was that interviewed the folks at Konami, but they interviewed the team that is working on Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, Delta remake, and they asked them, why are you remaking the Metal Gear games? And the answer was, it's because all the young people who play video games today have no idea what Metal Gear is. Mm-hmm. And so their fear is that one of their biggest franchise, and one of the biggest franchises in the industry, becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed, boys.
Yeah. Well, they also said that the reason that it's not called Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater Remake, and it's called Delta instead, is for the kids.
Yeah, so you don't think you need to play 2 other games.
Right, yeah.
Same reason it's not going to be called Mass Effect 4.
Well, they also said that narratively, there's a reason to start with this remake, because it sets off like one of the big arcs.
Chronologically, it's the first one.
Right, yeah. And so that's why they remade this one first. And it sounds to me like the others are coming, Matt.
Probably. I mean, maybe skip 5.
Well, 5 was the last one from 2015, so it's been 9 years now since the Metal Gear game.
Like, chronologically, you're jumping to Peace Walker after this, and then 5. I think maybe just go to Metal Gear 1.
Yeah,
Metal Gear Solid 1, or even Metal Gear. You know, that would be interesting to me to remake Metal Gear 1, like the actual
OG Metal Gear
game
before it was solid.
And I know Kojima thought about that, but decided against it. That might be, I guess take what you've learned and what you've implemented in this, and remake the original Metal Gear in like this style, and see what you end up with, would be kind of my suggestion if you absolutely insist on doing it. I don't think that young people are going to care about any of this.
Yeah.
A lot of young people don't even know how to use a computer anymore.
Yeah, seriously.
So,
yeah.
I learned, some of my friends who have kids in like middle school right now, they're learning how to use, they are now teaching them like keyboard and mouse computer stuff, because there's this whole generation that doesn't know how to do, it's just iPads, and like they don't know how to use computers.
Yeah, they
don't have computers to play around with. They just tap things. Like the interface became so transparent that people don't know the kids don't know how to use the devices anymore. Yeah, the device is a conduit. And like when we were kids, we were all the shit you had to do to make sure games worked properly, or like even just learning how to load. Quote.
Oh, learning how to type, like man! I took a typing class as a sophomore in high school to learn how to type.
No, I wouldn't.
A whole class just to learn how to type.
They wouldn't let me take the typing class.
Oh, really?
Because I could already type like 80, 90 words a minute, and they're like, "You just be doing that to take an easy class." I'm like, "Yeah,
but
like when you do something else." I'm like, "That's not fair."
I can type over 100 words per minute at this point.
I
literally can type as fast as stuff comes out of my brain. But anyway, today I was leaving to come over here, And I remembered how I used to have a laptop that would always sit like on the couch or on the ottoman on the couch or on the chase on the couch because we didn't have cell phones. And so you would sit there with your laptop surfing the internet, surfing social media because you couldn't do it on your phone. And now you have to do it. Most people just do it on their phone because it's much easier and smaller. But anyway, back to this topic, which is Konami fearing that its IP is becoming irrelevant. Matt, I don't think Konami or Metal Gear are alone in that. There's a lot of gaming IP out there that is on the verge of becoming completely irrelevant to a younger audience.
I'd say most of it is.
It feels like it.
Final Fantasy's having that problem.
I agree. Even though it's releasing games still. Even though it's releasing games, the kids still don't care.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling the same thing's going to happen with Metal Gear. Do you think it's going to resonate with the kids?
Probably not.
I mean, look at this. Do you think it's going to resonate with a bunch of 13-year-olds?
I mean, I don't know what the 13-year-olds are into,
Yeah,
but I don't see anybody flossing. So,
yeah.
Like maybe if they can get Ocelot to do the gritty instead of meowing, you might have something.
It might suck them in. But look, the whole Metal Gear franchise is on the verge of becoming completely irrelevant. So I agree with you. I think maybe they should remake the first Metal Gear.
I mean, I would argue they're well past the verge.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're salvaging this. Like, even Castlevania is probably more relevant now, even because they haven't had a game forever, but they've been in, like, tie-in expansion stuff with popular indie games, and they had that Netflix anime series.
But, Matt, I also think that's a property that's in danger of becoming irrelevant and going away.
I don't think it is. I think it's just in danger of going away as its own game series.
Yeah, like, that's what I mean.
But the property's not going anywhere because it's a popular cartoon.
Vampire hunting.
And it has a bunch of... It's in Dead Cells, and it's in Vampire Survivors, and it's in... It's like Castlevania still exists as an IP, it just doesn't exist as its own game. Yeah. Which is a shame, because I'd rather play Castlevania.
Me too.
And I mean, they are still putting out the remasters of the old games, which is nice, but like...
Silk Snake asks, does every IP need to live forever? Hell no.
No.
We just talked about Croc in last week's episode, how I told you I refused to curate Croc.
I would certainly not miss Metal Gear if it went away.
I mean, that's the irony, is we have these horrible games like Glover and Croc, that are being revived and we have all these other great IP that is just sitting there dying on the vine.
But it's like, this is not one of them. This is, I mean, both in the sense that I don't particularly like Metal Gear to begin with, but also like Metal Gear is Kojima. Yeah. Like I don't like Kojima's stuff very much, but
without him,
it's inherently him.
Yeah.
Like if you take Kojima off of Metal Gear, you don't have Metal Gear anymore.
No, that's true. That's true.
Like
I wouldn't trust
even as a dedicated Kojima hater. I admit, I have to admit that he is an auteur, and these games are what they are because of who he is.
Oh, yeah.
And if you take him out of this IP, it's not that IP anymore.
Yeah.
So let Metal Gear die, because without Kojima, it's not the same thing.
Well, remember, Konami tried to make its own Metal Gear game. Is that weird multiplayer?
Yeah,
cooperative,
I
whatever.
I don't know
thing.
what the hell.
Metal Gear Survive.
I can't hold that against anybody. It seems like a weird panic decision somebody made.
Definitely. Definitely.
But it's just
That's exactly what it was.
There are certain things that I would say don't try them without the original creator, and everything Kojima's ever made is at the top of that list.
Yeah.
Like, it's like Kojima, don't try to do this without Kojima. Don't try to do Mario without Miyamoto. Don't try, I mean, one day you're going to have to. Obviously. Yeah. But you don't have to. Metal Gear doesn't have to live forever.
And don't
Mario
forget,
does.
This collection came out not that long ago as well, which, again, I'm sure was them trying to make sure that the IP just doesn't disappear off the face of the earth.
Who the fuck is going to buy this stuff for children? Like, these are not games for kids.
Not
even in the sense of, they're so violent. They're boring.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to play them.
And they're all, like, very rooted in the politics and kind of the futurism of the late 90s and early 2000s, which is before any of these kids existed. Like Metal Gear Solid 2 does have some interesting things to say about the future of like what turned out to be social media and kind of the raising of a generation with tech without almost what I'm talking about, the inability to comprehend and understand the tech you're using while still being influenced by it. Like that's basically what Metal Gear Solid 2's ultimate thesis is. But like, do you think a kid who actually lived through that is going to find anything profound in that message? No. Like if they even understand,
they won't understand it at all. No. Norix Nessie asks, 94, why do you think Nintendo's franchises have lasted so long and not gone irrelevant? Because it's consistently released games in those franchises. Now, I mean, there's some that have fallen by the wayside. Kid Icarus, I would argue, is not really relevant anymore.
Because Nintendo constantly has to reinvent the wheel to justify making more of them.
Smash Brothers helps, too. Keep the properties relevant.
Smash Brothers keeps everything in front, including Metal Gear. Like that's if any kid wants Metal Gear's
Delta
it's
is probably
because
because they
Smash.
recognize it from Smash.
Agreed. Yep. Erebus says, Metal Gear resonated in a world where the X-Files was relevant.
Yeah.
It's just utter silly nonsense today. It's dead, just like Halo is dead. Doesn't mean it's bad, just its time. Yeah. And Khalib Twilight says, bring back Croc.
It was of its time, and it doesn't need to be back again.
Retro Modern Gamer says, Konami should not have fired Kojima. I don't think they fired Kojima. I think it was a mutual parting of the ways, and I think
they broke up with. They broke up.
Yeah,
it wasn't really.
I don't think it was a firing. I think Kojima was maybe made some demands that Konami wasn't down with, and he's like, "Okay, I'm out." Like, I don't think it was Konami firing. I mean, if you read any of the interviews,
that relationship had clearly come to an end.
Yeah, if you read any of the interviews of the people who are still at Konami, they wish to God Kojima was still there. Mm-hmm. Like, they still talk about him like he's a god. They're like, oh, we don't want to mess up anything. Like, they asked them why they didn't change Delta all that much. And because they were petrified of changing anything Kojima did. Mm. Like, he still kind of runs that place, even though he doesn't work there anymore.
Some of that's also because you're afraid of the fans.
Yeah, that's true, too. Khalib also says, maybe Konami wanted more Metal Gear and Kojima was done with it. That could be a possibility, too.
Especially after his experience on 5.
Yeah, I mean, he
may want more of this after you, made me, rush this out the door and not finish it?
I mean, I've always thought that what happened was he pitched Death Stranding to Konami, and they're like, no, you're making Metal Gear Solid 6, and he's like, no, I'm not, I'm leaving. I think that's what happened, honestly.
Probably.
Because, literally, he leaves, and, 3 months later, he signed with PlayStation to make Death Stranding? I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me. But anyway,
and he got that made pretty quick for him.
He did when Konami was out of the way. Notice,
indicates he had that percolating for some time.
Yep. So anyway, Konami, Metal Gear, lots of franchises out there growing old. I mean, we just talked about the 20th anniversary of Half-Life 2. A lot of these other franchises are coming up on their 30th anniversary, and if you aren't making games for them on a regular basis, we're into the second or third generation of gamers now. And you have to keep making those games or keep those characters in front of them, or they're going to forget about them or never know about them at all.
And then, you never know what's going to resonate. Where, apparently pre-orders of the Legacy of Kain thing is really much higher than they expected. Mm-hmm. So
that comes out December 10th, I think.
Yeah. So that's, cool. Mm-hmm. But, I wouldn't have expected... I love those games.
I think all the pre-orders are from people who look like us.
There are people who remember it.
Yeah.
But, okay. Yeah. Fine. Not everything... But, again... I think if a kid walks in and sees his dad playing Soul Reaver, they might think that Raziel guy looks pretty cool. I don't know if that's going to be,
Snake.
I don't know if that's going to happen with Metal Gear Solid Delta, both in terms of it's just sort of but also because they've stripped the visual character out of that game. The first game, the original Metal Gear Solid 3 has a lot of crazy color tone, and all that, and you
almost
look at
sepia,
and this, and there's a lot of yellow, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of blue in places, it's almost like James Cameron post color coding, and the remake just looks normal. There's no visual flair to it other than if you
drab.
Played
it looks drab.
It does look drab. Yeah, it looks very gray, gray and
brown,
kind of gunmetal steel sort of thing.
Yeah,
and it's just not. It doesn't pop, and I mean, I wish in general media would get over that shit. I wish, that's one of the reasons I'm excited about what I've seen so far from James Gunn's Superman movie. Is that suit is real blue and real red
colors? It pops.
I know we don't shoot on film anymore, but you can use post production and lighting and everything. You can capture Technicolor. Still, you can do Technicolor. And everyone's just afraid to have fucking color on the screen.
It still blows my mind how James Gunn has ascended. It really is crazy.
Yeah.
I worked with him at Spike. We went to the AEW, the Porn Awards in Vegas, and we walked around. He was our talent with a microphone on camera, interviewing porn stars.
Because he makes good movies.
But he wasn't even doing that then. He was making this little mini show for us called PG Porn that we ran exclusively on Spike. It was brilliant. But it was these 1 minute shorts or whatever.
Right, but he also he did Slither and he did all those things.
But it's I hung around with him for 4 days straight. I never ever in a million years when I was working with him would be like, oh my god, this guy's gonna be a legendary director someday.
Well, if you could do that, you would not be here.
I mean, but seriously, it's crazy to think about. He was so low on the totem pole. He's walking around interviewing trashy porn stars at this convention.
Everybody starts somewhere.
It's crazy. Anyway,
George Lucas wasn't much more than that when he made American Graffiti.
Yeah, and he also, you know what though, he was an awesome guy. That whole week I worked with him, he showed up on time. He wasn't drunk. He was great with people. His rapport with all the actresses was amazing. Like, he didn't talk down to them. I was really impressed with him. By the end of the week, like, I went back and I was talking to my boss. I'm like, he's great, man. Like, he's awesome. Like, I worked with him for 4 days, loved it. We got along. We had beers after we got done.
Yeah, he knows his shit, and no matter what he's doing, no matter what he's on, he takes it seriously.
Yeah.
And he tries to make it the best he can, and that's why the stuff he makes is always worthwhile. Yeah. And even if you don't like it, you can see the craftsmanship in it. And it doesn't surprise me in any way that they handed him the DC universe.
Yeah.
Like, he is going to give us the first good Superman movie in 40 damn years. I have no doubt about that.
That's awesome.
But I can even go back and look at the original Avengers and look how colorful that is compared to what you get now.
Yeah. Everything's very drab and washed out.
Yeah. Just the fact that Thor's cape is bright red and Iron Man's armor is bright red and gold. Like the things got more and more washed out as like the 2010s went on.
That's why I like how The Boys looks, because it does do that kind of washed out, almost sepia kind of look. But it
knows when to take it out.
Yeah. And then the next shot pops, and it creates like it affects your mood as you watch the show.
Because Eric Kripke is a very talented man.
Yeah.
And he knows how to make a show.
Yep.
Just like, you watch those first 5 years of Supernatural, and then he leaves. And then that show spends 2 years desperately fumbling to figure out what it is in a way that I have never seen a TV show do before or since. Like, it is if you want to watch a TV show like desperately try to find its own identity again for 2 fucking seasons straight, go watch seasons 6 and 7 of Supernatural. It is remarkable. Like, that show, like, I'm glad that show lasted for as long as it did, because apparently everybody who worked on it had a great relationship with everyone, and everybody was like home for everyone for 15 years, and like all the guest stars loved it, and it was very good for Vancouver's film industry and business. Great. However, it probably should have ended after 5. Like, the end of season 5 is a very natural stopping point.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is just sort of fan fiction after that.
All right. Next up, we talked about a month ago here on GameFace about rumors about an Xbox handheld that were starting to leak out from reliable people. I think it was Jez Corden, maybe, from Windows Central, who first got the scoop.
Right. Yeah.
But now, Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, this past week did a whole round of interviews. I don't know why, but he just did interviews with like everybody. And one of the interviews he did was with Rolling Stone. And in that interview, he shared that, in fact, the Xbox handheld is real. It is in development. They are working on it right now. However, he did say that it's still a couple years away. Matt, what do you think is going to happen with this? Do you think it's ever going to come out?
Absolutely nothing.
You think it'll come out?
I think it might.
Yeah.
I'm never going to own one.
I mean, so we saw
I am not buying this. just so you know.
Just so you know, this also is not the Xbox handheld. This is a Steam Deck trailer, but this is
I imagine it's going to be
something similar, I would guess. I guess the bigger question is like, what is the market if the Steam Deck already exists?
I don't know.
And do you think it will be like Switch?
Who wants a Steam Deck that's more limited?
Right. On what you can put on it.
Yeah.
Right. And do you think that it will work like a Switch in that you can plug it into your TV and play the games on the TV still?
I mean, it'd be stupid not to.
Feels like it has to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if this is the next Xbox.
I mean, no console at all?
No, yeah, this is what it's just.
The handheld is the Xbox.
It's just a Switch ripoff.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, wouldn't be the dumbest thing.
No.
I think it might piss off Xbox fans who are looking for it. Because here's the thing, though, Matt. They did say that the next Xbox is going to blow people away. Yeah. They said that it'll be their most powerful console, and so I don't think that would be the only thing that Xbox would release would be the handheld, unless they change their mind.
I mean, I guess you could do a handheld instead of like the Series X and the Series S. You do a handheld and do a super powered unhandheld.
Maybe it replaces the Series S. It's the new Series S for next gen, and it just happens to work with your TV as well. I mean, I think that might be
that's at least
smart.
a better way to differentiate between the two things without making them all that confusing.
Yeah. I mean,
it does feel like you're taking away the appeal of the Series S, which was that it's more affordable. It doesn't feel like this would be more affordable, like with a screen in it and all this. It feels like you're going to be charging.
It's going to be $700, like the Steam Deck would be my guess. Yeah.
So you make a $600-700 handheld and like $1,000 super beast of a console, and then everyone else can just play in the environment on whatever other platforms they already have.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's your strategy, because you're not beating Sony at their own game and that. Although maybe, I don't know, maybe the fucking PS6 is going to be $1,000. Who knows?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean,
at this rate, if the tariffs go into play, like enjoy your $600 Switch 2. Like,
I mean,
that could just be how it works.
On Pactor said that if the tariffs are real and they actually go through, that the PS5 Pro, which is now $700, could cost as much as $1,300. Yeah.
Talking about 40 to 50% raise.
Yes.
in
price.
MSRP.
Yeah. So I have a feeling that that's not going to happen. I think someone will be like, "Bro, that's the dumbest thing you could ever do," and I think that he will bail on that. But we'll see.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. He does really dumb crap pretty much every day, so we'll see how that goes.
The key, I think, is to get him to stop listening to Elon, which sounds like it will happen in the next 6 months because he's already sick of him.
You mean Leon?
Leon?
That's what he called him, Leon.
Did he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
You see the footage of, like, them sitting at, like, some event or something? It was a UFC event or something, and, like, Elon's trying to show him memes on his phone, and Trump's like, it was like you could tell this had been going on all day,
right?
And like Trump,
no, look at this one. Maybe you'll laugh at this
like,
one. The whole thing's insane.
It's very weird, but those two egos cannot exist in the same room for that long.
The whole thing is just bonkers. But anyway, so here's the thing, though. If you noticed in that this is an Xbox trailer, they showed a ton of handhelds. Like, most of the footage was not people using their cell phones. Or if they were using their phone, they had the grips on the phone to make it look like a handheld.
I did notice that.
So that might be a little bit of a precursor trying to grease the wheels with fans a little bit to get their heads around the idea that the next Xbox, could have a handheld version of it. I don't know. But I think generally Microsoft is a company that can afford to lose more money than I can even comprehend mentally. And if it wants to try a handheld and lose some money on it, I don't really give a crap. I think generally it's good to have options. So I think if you're an Xbox fan, you should be pretty excited about the idea of an Xbox handheld. It does feel like as we get to the law of diminishing returns with hardware and graphics that handhelds start to make a lot more sense, because if we eventually get to a point where you can have something with this size form factor that can run like a 4070 or whatever, I mean, you're kind of there. Do you need something more powerful than that? Sure. Do you need it? Not really. Like, I feel like we're kind of on the cusp here of within like 5 years where a handheld could be all that you need.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I know. I understand that there's certain people that would never be down with that, but I think that we could get to that place.
No, I mean, you could get to that where that use case is one of the primary methods.
Yeah, and where it's not costing you a G or whatever to buy it as well, where it's actually maybe kind of reasonable around like $500 or something. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm just glad Microsoft is working on it. The more people working on ideas and products like this, the better. Because Microsoft could put out this handheld, it could try a bunch of cool stuff, and then Valve could incorporate it into the next Steam Deck. Nintendo could incorporate it into the Switch 3 or whatever. That's how the industry works. I think a healthy industry, in any healthy industry, that's how it works. You have people competing, coming up with new ideas, releasing new products that inspire other people to then create new products and have new ideas. So, I think
above it all, Sony is completely uncompetitive.
Yeah, well, they have the streaming handheld, which, by the way, I'm getting here in the next week.
Right, but I'm saying no one will be competing with Sony at that point.
No, nope.
Sony will be completely.
I mean, let's be honest. No one's really competing with Sony right now.
No, but there's the illusion of it. Like yeah. Sony. I mean, Sony can slip right back into arrogant, dumb shit Sony.
Which is kind of done in a couple ways already, I would argue.
A little bit. I mean, they know they could get away with what they did this year, and no one can touch them.
Well, the Pactor Factor that we just published yesterday, it was, why is PlayStation and how is PlayStation increasing the prices of its products? How can it get away with increasing the price of PS5 by €50? How can it get away with increasing the price of the DualShock by $5?
Well, what are you going to do, not buy it?
And that's his answer. It's like, they got you by the balls.
You want to play video games?
Where are you going to go?
Yeah, you want to play video games.
And that's dangerous.
That's what it is. Yeah.
It is dangerous.
Especially when it's Sony.
I know.
Like, I was much less anxious about that kind of thing when my Xbox was ahead.
Agreed.
Because Microsoft isn't generally going to do stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't have. The other thing is it doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't.
Like Sony's electronics department, they're in crazy crap. Like they're doing horrible.
Sony's level of flailing in all of its divisions is really ridiculous.
PlayStation is keeping it afloat right now, and that's why it's increasing the prices of its PlayStation products.
The desperation with which it's trying to hang on to all the Spider-Man stuff in the Sony Pictures department is like,
or just its TVs and its cameras.
I mean, all that's been a lost cause for a long time. But let's see what kind of a bath they take on Craven.
Mm-hmm. Yep, maybe that'll make it change its ways. So anyway,
if Madam Web didn't,
yeah,
and that's not like Venom 3 did any better. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what they're gonna do over there.
I mean, I think this is going to happen. I would give this an 85% chance of happening because what could go wrong? Like,
No one could buy it.
well, right, but I mean, they're going to release it because there's no way Microsoft has built so much hardware. It's not going to get to a point where it's like we can't figure out how to make a handheld. Like, it's not going to happen. Like,
Yeah, it's really just as long as it plays nice with whatever their plans for the other, if there's another Xbox standalone console.
Yeah.
That's all. It just has to synergize with that somehow.
yeah, and Game Pass, obviously, which it will.
Yeah, the Game Pass works with that.
I mean, they may
But
even call it the Xbox Game Pass handheld or some crap. Like, seriously, like they may call it something like that.
they call it the Xbox Passport.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
That's not free.
You
Pay me
gotta
for
us
that shit.
one. Jeremy Vick says we're already there. It's why half the gaming community plays the same handful of games, almost all of which are also on mobile. Fortnite, Roblox, Call of Duty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Call of Duty at least does have a separate Call of Duty mobile. Like, you're not playing Black Ops 6 on mobile. So that changes things a little bit. But, yeah, I hear you. Okay, up next. So we keep trying to figure out how this day one stuff works. And a few weeks ago with Game Pass, and I was talking about how, I went to try to play Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred. And I had downloaded Diablo 4 for free on Game Pass. I just assumed I could go download Vessel of Hatred for free on Game Pass because I'm a subscriber. That was not the case. Game Pass subscribers have to pay for Vessel of Hatred. And
as like every other DLC that's ever been out.
But I don't know what you mean, though, by that. What other DLC's been on Game Pass?
No DLC is on Game Pass.
Right. So this is the first case. This is like where they set the precedent.
What do you mean?
As far as like you're not getting DLC free if you're a Game Pass
that
subscriber.
precedent's been there for years. Every Forza Horizon DLC was
Okay,
paid
that's what I was
separately.
asking. Like, what other examples
Every
were there?
Gears of War season pass was paid.
I actually wasn't sure about that.
No, they have never given you DLC in addition to the core game on Game Pass. You've always had to buy that separate, which is why every time one of those games, especially Forza, goes off Game Pass because the license is ending, they put the core game on crazy deep. Like, I think Forza, whatever the last Forza got delisted, I don't remember which was that. Horizon 4?
4, yeah.
That, if you're a Game Pass subscriber, I think the core game was 99 cents. Because they know that a bunch of those people have bought the DLC, just never bought the core game because it was part of Game Pass.
Yeah.
So they do kind of give you a break on that, but that has always been the case. Like,
Okay. Well, they did it again with Diablo 4 for Vessel of Hatred. I was a little pissed off about that to discover. I had not realized that they had not done it that way. And I let it go. And I was like, okay, well, if they've done it already, and blah, 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 maybe I shouldn't be so bent out of shape about it. Well, now we've received some new information about this. And the other part of this is that in the future, there will be more DLC or extra content for Diablo 4 that you will not have access to unless you bought Vessel of Hatred. So it's not just now that you do or do not get access to that DLC. It's that you will not even be capable of buying that certain DLC in the future unless you bought Vessel of Hatred. How do you feel about that?
I mean...
Do you think it's smart on Microsoft's part?
I think it's kind of unimportant.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're playing Diablo 4 to the degree that you care about whatever the latest cutting-edge DLC is, you have Vessel of Hatred. Because otherwise you're not able to play Diablo 4.
I mean, I did, and I didn't buy it. I said no. I was no.
But you're not playing Diablo 4 as a lifestyle game.
No, but I played it for like 60 hours.
Right, but that's nothing.
Yeah. No, you're right, nothing. Actually. That is kind of nothing in this grand scheme of
like Diablo 4 is your game, then you already have Vessel of Hatred.
You're right.
Like, if you care about this stuff. Like,
but, I mean, don't they care about getting people like me to buy it, too?
Not really.
I guess not.
You're not a whale. You're not a Diablo 4 whale. Like, what is the DLC they're talking about? It's like the...
Probably like $20.
$20, like, what is it, like... Just like
it's pretty
cosmetic
big.
shit or
no. It's you have a brand new class, a spirit.
Oh, okay.
What is it called? The spirit something or other.
Spirit caller or
something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a brand new class and there's tons of new campaign content and blah blah blah.
I mean, probably
it picks up the story right
probably
after the
just
end.
not compatible. I mean, if it's continuation after Vessel of Hatred, then yeah, like is that what it is? Vessel of Hatred? Yeah.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I guess you got to get the first one and move on. I mean, it's sort of like how with like StarCraft 2, you're supposed to play them in a certain order.
It feels like it's a sure way to make sure your audience continues to dwindle. Your potential audience continues to dwindle.
That doesn't seem to be what's happening though.
Yeah.
Diablo 4 is still going strong.
No, it's doing great. But but it feels like with each new release, there's less people that are going to be able to buy and play it.
I just don't think that's what's happening
Yeah.
here. Like, people, like, why would, if you're into Diablo, why wouldn't you buy the new DLC for Diablo, which is Vessel of Hatred? And then if you already have it, most people that are play Diablo 4 like really hardcore are never even going to know this is the case, because they already have it, and let's be able to buy the new one, and that's the end of it. Like, their targets at this point are not people who are like, oh, I like Diablo, there's a new Diablo, I'm going to play Diablo. They're targeted the people that are like, Diablo 4 is what I play every day.
Yeah.
And go through the ladders and create a new character and do the season stuff and all that.
You know, I've never been that way with any game.
Neither have I.
So I probably have a little bit of a blind spot for it.
Yeah.
Because I've never experienced it myself.
100%. I mean, I'm aware. I mean, that's like, I guess I don't have a blind spot in the sense that I'm aware of all that stuff and how it works, but it's certainly nothing I want to do myself.
Yeah.
You know, like.
And I think that's how I looked at it. I'm like, I think that's wrong. I wouldn't want to do that. Like, I want to be able to have the option to buy every piece of whatever I want.
But like, it doesn't make sense to buy another piece of, if it's like, I mean, I guess you'd be skipping.
If it's
part of the
standalone,
story.
it's fine. Yeah.
It's not a standalone. It's a
well, this
continuation.
continues the story,
Yeah.
and you could totally play it without playing the first game. You absolutely could. And what if you just want to play the new class that comes out with every expansion? You just want to give the new class
It sounds
a go.
like the new class is tied into
You're
some
gonna
of
have to pay for
the
it.
new mechanics of the expansion of Vessel of Hatred, so you'd need that to also work with it.
Yeah.
You could extricate that, but I just don't think it's that important.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you want Vessel of Hatred?
I mean, I wanted it. I didn't want to pay for it.
Well, yeah, so say we all about everything. You know?
Well, I'm giving $20 a month to Game Pass.
I would like a trip to Europe. Like, I don't.
I mean, look, I go months at a time with Game Pass where I'm giving them $20 a month, and I don't play anything on it. Like, I feel like they should account for that and know that a lot of people that have subscriptions, like, they go through periods where they don't get anything from the subscription.
It's the Razor Blade model. You get the base game for free, but you got to pay for the blades, and the blades are the DLC. Like, I'm fine.
Was it new? It's the new version of the Razor and Razor Blade
Pretty
model.
much, yeah. I mean, I'm fine with that model. It makes sense to me. You're still putting those things in active development. Otherwise, you're just giving this game away for free forever, no matter how much you throw into development of the future stuff and the ongoing thing. Like, you know, like that's fine. It's fine. It's a little weird that they have like kind of chained the DLC that way. I can't remember an example of that happening.
That's another reason why I brought it up. Yes,
but also,
I've
like,
heard
I
of
guess
it
the best example of that would be World of Warcraft. But like the way they used to handle that, they usually would like incorporate the previous like 2 expansion packs ago, they just incorporate that into the core game.
Right.
And so if you subscribe to the core game,
you still got
you
that.
kind of got the Burning Crusade,
right?
And then like so you only had to buy
or Miss a Pandaria.
But like you still every once in a while you had some people say, well, I paid $80 for the limited edition of that. Now everybody just gets it. It's like, yeah, it's 3 years later, asshole.
You had it for 3 years. Yeah. So anyway, just something to keep in mind if you are one of those people we just talked about. If you played Diablo all day, every day, something to keep. Actually, it won't affect you that much because, to your point, they probably bought Vessel of Hatred and didn't think twice about it.
Erebus Jones points out that it's not going to stop you from buying season passes, and there's a 25-level trial for the new class, so you can test it out.
That is true. I should have brought that up on my own, and that is that Blizzard is trying to find a middle ground, I guess, for people. I mean, 25 hours, that's a lot.
Yeah, and also, like, still, Vessel of Hatred plus the new DLC, like, is that even how much Diablo 4 costs on its own?
Right.
Like,
I don't know, actually.
It's still a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, Forza Horizon 4 is being delisted on December 15th.
Which is it's crazy that they're delisting that already. It's not that old.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
5 years, 6 years?
That's how long those licenses last.
Yeah. I mean, it probably is exactly 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, Kojima?
Next up. Do you remember The First Descendant, Matt?
Vaguely.
It's a cooperative
Is that co-op
third-person shooter. The fact that you vaguely remember it, even though we covered it here on GameFace probably 3 months ago, shows you everything you need to know about The First Descendant. It is very much a derivative, sci-fi-ish, cooperative third-person shooter. There's a ton of those games on the market. This game did very, very well when it came out, though. It was like a surprise, like smash hit.
I think I did play this a little bit.
You played it.
Yeah.
Yep, you absolutely did. And it came out, it had a great start, and like a lot of games as a service, over time it dwindled, and now it is struggling to survive. And Matt, the developers of this game have figured out exactly what they need to do to keep it relevant, and that is to add jiggle physics. So this week,
if you got no other ideas, lean into the grifters.
Pretty much. They said this week that they are going to add jiggle physics to the game based on overwhelming fan recommendations. which tells you all you need to know about what's left of the community for the first Descendant.
Indeed.
It's all 12 and 13-year-old boys who I think it's free.
No, these are 40-something-year-old men.
Well, this is free to play, isn't it?
Yeah.
So my guess is
no, it's not.
These are 13-year-old kids whose
No,
parents
they are
won't
not.
buy them games.
No, they are not. They
Really?
are 40-something-year-old men who are afraid of woke.
Really?
100%. 100%. That's what this is.
Really?
100%. The only people I see talk about this game are people our age who hate gay people and people aren't white.
That is pathetic. I mean, come on, man. Really?
This is one of the anti-woke games because there's no woke stuff in it. This is one of the things that there's one of the games that people
have resonated with.
Like. So look, it makes sense if that's your audience. Yeah, lean into it and put boob jiggle in it because that's how fucking the big losers want, I guess.
Wow. I mean, I seriously thought that it was all like 12 and 13-year-old boys who played this game because
there are 13-year-old boys, but the people that are demanding jiggle physics are our age.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, the funny part about this...
I don't know why there's a whole segment of people that don't seem to understand that porn is free.
Yeah, I don't either.
But they need to get it in their video games. They can't spend a single minute of the day without being titillated by digital tits.
I mean, the crazy thing is, I mean, just go back to this shot here. Like, one of the lead characters already has heaving, like, quadruple G boobs.
Yeah.
But now they need to move? It wasn't good there. Like, I mean, this isn't good enough for them?
Like, to them, it's not real unless they're jiggling around like Jello molds because they've never seen...
actually touched real boobs.
Actual boob, so... It's kind of like that thing where it's like they all freaked out about how Aloy has like hair on her face.
Right.
And
peach fuzz.
Like peach fuzz on her face. And you're like, oh,
You've never seen a woman
You've
up
never
close.
seen a woman that close that you can see that they have hair because they're mammals. Like you're just fucking telling on yourself.
Wow, I really didn't think that's what this was.
That's 100% what this.
I really
is.
thought it was just young boys who didn't have access to porn, wanting it to be in the free game that they play.
No. You are.
I always give people
Shane,
way too much benefit.
I was
of the
about
doubt.
to say exactly that. You need to stop giving people credit for shit because it's always the worst thing you can think of.
Yeah, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, you should stop doing that. It's getting you in trouble.
It kind of is. So anyway, I guess there you go.
I didn't hate this game actually. It didn't hold my attention, but it was fun enough.
No, it wasn't terrible. I played it for like 20 hours if I remember correctly.
Like it was pretty good for free.
Yeah, it was, and it
was as good as like Warframe.
It reaped the rewards of it.
Yeah,
it did very well at first, but it's just died like all these games
because
do.
there's nothing else but this.
This is it.
Like you've seen this, and then if you go watch that boss battle, that's the game. Those are the two things you're doing.
Yeah,
and then there's a really overly complex upgrade system that probably belongs in a mobile game.
This also has the very incremental upgrade for everything.
This and upgrade this, that upgrades this, that this upgrades this attachment, that attaches to this gun, and then you can upgrade for that gun that makes that gun 2 stars instead of 1 star, and then you have to upgrade the attachment that makes that gun a bit. It's like, okay, guys, can you just give me a better weapon? No, we cannot do that.
And each thing is only like 0.05% better than
incremental.
Which is the way a lot of these games are, to be fair. I mean, that's how they get people hooked on them.
Yeah.
And following the breadcrumb trail, but
like it was kind of a testament to it that it was still fun to play even with that sort of layer, like trying to keep you. It was sort of desperately trying to keep you playing with like these kinds of mechanics, when really the reason to keep playing any game is because it's fun and this was actually pretty fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Like I'm not slagging the game at all. Like it was and they made their money off of it. Like it was a good game. People liked it. People supported it.
But obviously, as always, these things are supposed to last forever.
Yeah.
So they have to find a way to try to,
hang on,
make that happen. I guess. I mean, I don't think this is going to do it. It's not like I'm going to reinstall it because the boobs wiggle now.
No, Matt. This is just to keep the last people they have left still playing the game.
On there? Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, that's what this is all about.
But I don't know. In the meantime, once you're done with that, maybe you could add, I don't know, some content.
Yeah.
Like another level or something.
I mean, I think they have. I think they've done a pretty good job.
This thing has just vanished from the discourse.
They put out a trailer
outside of that audience. Yeah. Like no one's really talking about this anymore.
Well, they put out trailers for their new season before they launch, and that's it. So you get one piece of content, and if you miss it on SIFTD, it goes through your SIFT. You don't see it, you would think there's nothing happening. So I totally understand why you would think that way. But they have done a pretty good job supporting it with content post-launch. But it's just the nature of things. Mm-hmm. People play your game for a couple months, and unless it is like mind blowing, they move on to something else.
Yeah, not everything is Destiny.
Yeah, Not everything has to
And even
last forever.
Destiny can't even hold on to people anymore.
No,
so.
with the resources that it has. So, yeah. There you go. If you've fallen off with the first...
make this stuff, cash in hard, sell out fast, get out, and make something else.
Seriously, I mean, that's what you do. Yeah. And they're trying to hold on, which it's not going to work. Even with the Jiggle physics, it's not going to work. A big Valve-heavy episode of GameFace today, although this is only tangentially related to Valve. It's come out that Back 4 Blood 2 is on the way. It is basically the spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead that Turtle Rock Studios had to make because they didn't own the Left 4 Dead IP that Valve owns. Do you remember this game?
I mean, now that they mentioned this, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it was about pretty much a straight up.
Yeah,
Left
I mean,
4
I
Dead
know
clone.
there was a Left 4 Dead clone spiritual successor that was made by the people who made. I never played it, but
and his big X factor was, as you're saying, his whole wild cards thing that it had, where you had different cards that you could collect and blah blah blah. But ultimately, it was basically just Left 4 Dead, where you're just going from one safe house to the next, fighting horrible zombies from one to the next. I struggled to see a whole lot different about this game, other than kind of the card mechanic versus Left 4 Dead. But it's like we weren't getting a new Left 4 Dead game, so someone needed to fill the void, and fill the void they did. But my question is, in this case in particular, why do you release a sequel? Why do you not just keep releasing DLC for the base game?
I don't know.
It's really weird how some developers decide to do this, to go on with the full sequel. They make the Overwatch 2 mistake.
Maybe because the title Back 4 Blood kind of implies you have to do a sequel. It's like, where are you coming back from? You should be, I don't know.
But there's also this other game.
You call it Back Again for Blood.
Yeah. There's this other Left 4 Dead clone called World War Z, which I reviewed here on GameFace, and I actually really liked it and thought it was really good. There's just one World War Z still. They just keep adding content to World War Z, and that's fine. That's great.
I assume it usually means that they feel like they've gone as far as they can with retention on the previous one, and they think they'll get more attention and a bigger pop from a launch of a new game.
I think that's a mistake.
Probably.
I think if people don't care about it, they just don't care about it anymore.
Right. I mean, I think it's a mistake in the sense of just make something else.
Right.
I'm gonna say, I don't mean add the content you would have made for the sequel into the existing game, because I think, if the game's not working,
it's just time to move on.
Just move on and make something. I mean, you've made this game 3 times now. Just don't go for a 4th. Just come up with something else.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that this is a strategy that's...
I don't know, maybe vampires.
Right. Nope. That would be a terrible idea, as we've learned already.
Werewolves. Mummies.
Nope. Not going to happen.
Bats. Just
bats.
Not
vampires.
Just bats everywhere. Just bats.
They actually never turn into
Call
the
it
vampires.
Bat Country. You can play as the Fear and Loathing guys.
Yeah. But I really see no reason to have a sequel to this. It's not like the tech is improved so much that they need to do another game. This game didn't really stretch the tech that was available at the time.
No, it just looks exactly like slightly upgraded Left 4 Dead.
It's just a high-res Left 4 Dead.
I mean, I played Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 for probably 300 hours total. And I'm like, I never need to do this again.
No.
Never.
It's a formula that, it hooks you in.
Yeah.
But once you're over it, you're over it.
And much like the other, it was of its time, and not everything needs to last forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Move on.
Eviloni5 asks, how is it that Back 4 Blood has so little content when World War Z is still coming out with new scenarios? Yeah. I don't know if World War Z has a more dedicated audience. I don't know.
One of the strengths World War Z has is you're not doing the same thing in every level.
You're right.
You've got different objectives. You've got different ideas for
You're not just fighting to the next safe
It's not just get to the next. Sometimes you're extracting other people. Sometimes you're after something specific. It's not the same thing every time. And I think that's World War Z's major strength. Otherwise, they're fairly similar games.
Because the only thing that mixes up Back 4 Blood are the enemies.
Yeah, because I don't think World War Z really... I don't think the IP is really driving that.
No.
I think it's just a more interesting game because there's more to do in terms of variety.
And it is surprisingly good, I would also add. I was pleasantly surprised by World War Z.
I think there's also the the gas. I mean, I haven't played much of it, but like the gas mechanic, where like you can blow the things and they create the gas, and that can mutate the thing. Yeah. Like I think that's more interesting than anything that's Back 4 Blood just feels like if you've played Left 4 Dead 2, you already know everything this game's going to throw at you.
You do, yeah.
And World War Z has a couple of twists, sort of in the sense that like. Is the Starship Troopers game all that different from a Left 4 Dead kind of thing? No, but like it's different. It's not the same thing you played for. You know, the construction adds something to it. It makes it into something a little more freeform. This feels ancient. Just watching this footage feels like if you showed me this, the only reason I would know this is not Left 4 Dead is it's not the same characters.
Right. Yeah.
Like
not that those characters are all that memorable anyway, but
no, but I like Bill and I like all I remember
yeah.
them and Zoe and that like I remember the originals and stuff. Like I can identify even if I don't remember their names necessarily, I can identify all the Left 4 Dead characters if you show me a picture of them.
Yeah.
But like
these are nameless, faceless,
pretty much.
So I don't know if anyone's calling for a sequel to Back 4 Blood, but it's coming whether you want it or not.
Now, when I saw this pop up, I was like, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And not all that long after the first one either.
Who's got the money to just throw after that? Like,
I mean, they made a lot of money on this. This sold like crazy, man. Believe it or not, it sold very, very well.
You think you can do that magic trick again?
No.
It doesn't seem
People
like
got
it
their
to
fill. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a terrible idea. I agree with you. I think that Turtle Rock should make a new game.
And they're not the only ones doing that. I mean, it's like you're making another Aliens game that's the same. Was it Extract Fireteam?
Yeah. Well, no. They're making that one, but they're also making a new successor to Aliens.
The Extraction thing?
No, the stealth game.
Isolation?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's fine. Isolation's 10 years old.
Right, I'm saying that's a good Aliens game. That's
but I don't understand why you're making another
of that cooperative shooter
co-op
thing.
Shooter
Yeah,
one.
I don't either. That's kind of, you're right. That's a great comparison. Like I wouldn't do that sequel. I wouldn't do this sequel either. I don't think either one of them are a good idea. Yep. But again, everyone's looking for those ongoing games that they can keep making money off of for months and months to come.
Someone out there got to learn the lesson from Concord.
You would think.
Like that market's saturated.
Yeah.
Like you're playing Russian roulette if you're trying to make a game in that kind of lifestyle co-op game space.
Yeah.
Like that's a co-op game or even competitive. Like there's no room.
Yeah.
Like I know everybody's like hoping that they get in right at the time like there's like an opening happens to happen because you never know when that's going to occur, but like you're risking your whole company on that, and it just feels silly.
It does feel stupid is the word I would use, but
yeah.
Silly works too. So anyway, there you go. Back 4 Blood 2 is on the way. Next up, we got some rumors this week from reliable sources that a Horizon MMO we already knew was in development, but these sources are saying the game is coming out next year.
Well, Sony's got to put something out.
So here's the thing. So this
There's another game as a service, I guess.
Yeah, this is confusing. So there's kind of two games right now, but it may be the same one. So Guerrilla has said that it's working on a Horizon multiplayer game. NCSoft has said that it is working with Guerrilla on a Horizon multiplayer game. And people aren't sure whether they're the same game or there's two separate games.
I would guess it's the same game.
I would argue that as well, because who wants two multiplayer Horizon games?
What would the other multiplayer, like a
maybe a cooperative thing or something?
Like an extraction shit? Give me a break.
I don't know.
There's nothing you could do in that you couldn't also do in an MMO.
Right. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think there's one game coming. I think NCSoft is doing the majority of the heavy lifting with development, which makes sense because NCSoft pretty much all it makes is games as a service. Although generally it makes games for the Korean market.
Yeah,
the games do well there.
Make great games.
Right. Well, they do well in Korea. They don't do so well in the West. So that's my guess. NCSoft is partnering with Guerrilla to work on this multiplayer game. But the truth of the matter is based on reliable sources, it's coming out next year. What would you want in a Horizon MMO? And keep in mind, we're going to talk here in a minute.
Literally nothing.
About a Horizon Lego game here in about 10 minutes.
Literally nothing. I do not understand the purpose of this game.
I mean, I know what they're doing.
I know what they're doing
to make the IP
sure, but like
spread.
No.
It's not worth it, you're saying?
Like, what is it going to be?
I don't know.
One of the main premises of Horizon is everybody fucking sucks at hunting these things except Aloy.
I mean, I think it's going to be an MMORPG where it's a bunch of people just in Aloy's world running around hunting machines.
But who the fuck wants to do that? Like that, it's not of interest to me. I mean, I guess maybe if you set it in a completely different place, maybe it's like set in Europe to see another aspect of the world and what happened over there, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, the Horizon is Aloy and kind of the ongoing story of, you know, what happened in the past versus what's happening now and all that coming back home to roost and all that. And like, just sort of an aimless little, like, a bunch of people running around surviving is not of interest to me in that world. I mean, that world is an interesting backdrop for the story they're telling. It's not an interesting world to just sort of exist in as a nobody to me.
I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's this post-apocalyptic world that still there are shades of Earth there, but it's been overrun by these robots that are fun to fight.
Yeah, but I just don't... I mean, a lot of people... even people in the chat right now are saying, like, a lot of people are assuming it's going to be Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter Horizon, which doesn't make any fucking sense because, like, I mean, I guess it does make sense in a way because if Aloy's, like, the only one who can really take these things down properly, make it really hard and clunky and shitty gameplay to, like, take them down as normal people, I guess does track.
Yeah.
You have to have a team playing a shitty, like, slow motion melee game to kill
because
these
they've also kind of given you the tools because you have like all the trapping stuff which Monster Hunter has.
Yeah, but like it's just I don't know. Like I can't possibly think of something that's less interesting to me except maybe a Lego version of it.
Really, even somebody who loves Horizon as much as you do.
I love a single player RPG that you run.
You don't
around.
love like the universe though.
It's interesting, but I don't want to play a shitty MMO in it. No.
Well, it could be a good MMO.
I don't know what that would be.
Touche.
No MMO has been a good game.
I would agree with that, sadly.
They have been functional fill-the-bar addiction social simulators, like parasocial simulators, but there has never been an MMO that is a good game that I would play on its own merits as an offline game.
I agree with that. I know people will disagree with us on that, but I agree with it.
And if it's Monster Hunter, you can go fuck yourself. So
I mean, that does seem likely. I don't know if NC Soft would make that game though.
I mean, in terms of market forces, what sells and what things would adapt to what, and an MMO Monster Hunter Horizon would be the most logical choice. But I don't know if you could come up with a series of words that would be more repulsive to me.
Now that that's been brought up, maybe there are two games. Maybe there is a Monster Hunter style one.
Yeah, I mean
that Guerrilla's working on, and then NC Soft is working on the straight up MMO take on it.
That could be. That could be.
Because NC Soft working on a Monster Hunter game doesn't add up for me, but I don't know.
But I mean, if Guerrilla's making the gameplay part and NC Soft is handling the online networking stuff, that would make more sense to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too.
Also, part of me just hopes that Guerrilla's not wasting its time making a whole separate game, and they're making a whole separate game, and we're gonna have to wait like 10 years for Horizon 3. I'd rather just get Horizon 3.
I agree with that as well. I mean, it is kind of strange to me, I've mentioned this before, that this has become the IP that PlayStation has decided to...
Because it sold so well.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw from that leak, this thing sold way more than any... It's their most successful new IP of the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I would never... I mean, I love Horizon, but I would never have guessed that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad. It deserves it, I think.
Means we're getting another one.
Yeah, we're definitely getting another one, but I would never have thought that. Yeah. I would never have thought that was outselling some of these other major... Like, outselling Last of Us.
Yeah. Yep. So, I wonder what you guys think about playing a multiplayer Horizon game. Khalib Twilight says, comparing MMOs to single-player games is apples to oranges. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. That's why we always ask, like, how does it work? How does this universe work in the MMO design or setting?
Forbidden West was not terrible. Give me a fucking break.
Vincent says, I'm assuming it's going to be an Ark-style game, like a survival game.
Maybe. I mean, I would be surprised if there weren't survival elements in it. Yeah.
Because that's also, to your point earlier about, like, this is the hot stuff that everyone's ticking the boxes of today. Survival games are kind of that. Yeah. Eviloni5 says, I would rather have an MMO Transformers game.
I mean, I don't even know what that would be. Like, what am I going to do in a Transformers game like that?
An MMO, in particular.
An MMO. Like, what's the point? Like, what is the massively multiplayer hook of that?
Right. Where it's working with other players.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you can band together and
it's a war thing.
Go to war against the Decepticons.
Right, but what are you going to get out of that you wouldn't get out of a general standard competitive multiplayer game?
Yeah, that to me is the better idea.
Especially because, like, honestly, I mean, I don't have any interest in... I wouldn't play this probably anyway. But if you're going to make me pick a multiplayer kind of trendy thing to make a Transformers game out of, character shooter.
Yeah. Or the better idea.
Because the thing with an MMO like that, everybody's got to create their own generic fucking robot.
Right.
Whereas with a character Overwatch style thing, you get to use the actual Decepticons and Autobots everybody likes, and you play as all of them, and you give them all their own little abilities and stuff. Like, that would be cool.
PvP for Transformers.
I wouldn't
definitely.
care, but like, cause I probably would actually try that if it was free. But like, at the very least to play as Soundwave and eject little guys. Mm-hmm. But like, yeah, that would make some sense to me. I don't know what an MMO. They've talked about that before. They've tried to do sort of MMO Transformer stuff, and it's just there's no there.
Yeah, I don't know what it would be. Yep. So anyway, there you go. That's the latest on the Horizon franchise. And again, in here, like 10 minutes, we're going to talk about a Horizon Lego game. Just stick with us. And then our final story for headlines for episode 412 is something that just hit the wires this morning, and that's why it's the last topic and not the first. I'd already created the rundown.
Khalib Twilight. Okay, first off, explain, period. No, like, you don't talk to me like that.
The narrative drove me crazy.
The narrative drove me crazy? I don't know what you're... I care more about narrative, too. That's my whole thing. My degree is in storytelling, literally. And Forbidden West storytelling is entirely fine.
So is he saying Horizon's narrative drove him crazy?
Forbidden West.
Why?
I don't know.
You're the one who needs to explain.
Apparently, we get demanded to be explained, but he doesn't. You explain.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought the narrative was fine. And then we're going to talk about it in a minute, but it was interesting how they handled the narrative in the Lego game, because obviously it's for a different audience, so we'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. Next up, in our final story that broke this morning, and probably the biggest story in all of the headlines, to be fair, is that it broke this morning that Sony right now is in the process of trying to buy FromSoftware's parent company, Kadokawa. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Which...
Now, the one thing I will say about this story, it is completely fucking insane to me that the thrust of this story, as reported, at least in the West, is that they're buying the company that made Elden Ring. Kadokawa is a giant
people don't realize
media company.
Yeah.
It's giant. It's like they're buying NBC or something.
Like that.
And
yeah.
like the whole thing is that it's the Elden Ring people. Could you possibly have less perspective on if you want to know for fucking sure that the FromSoftware fan base is in the smallest fucking echo bubble you could possibly imagine, is that the first thing they think about when Sony's buying Kadokawa is that Elden Ring is getting purchased. Oh my God.
Don't blame the journalists, because the journalists have to write the stories in such a way that it will appeal to the audience.
I guess so.
And the audience doesn't care
Christ.
about the rest of Kadokawa. All they care about is Elden Ring and Dark Souls and Sekiro.
I don't believe that the FromSoftware people do not also like anime. Yeah. Because Kadokawa is in front of almost every major anime film from a certain era you've ever seen.
This is why people are freaking out. Because don't forget...
This is a huge purchase, and that has nothing to do with FromSoftware being purchased.
Well, the reason a lot of people are freaking out about this is because, don't forget, PlayStation, it bought that anime service or whatever. And then it basically... killed it and folded it.
Yeah, this would explain a lot of that if they want to repurpose that into.
And so people are terrified that if they buy Kadokawa, that they'll take FromSoftware and all the video game stuff and they'll kill all the other media. And that is why people are freaking out right now, because they're afraid that it will kill off all the anime that it does.
See, I don't think they would kill it off on purpose, but the way Sony makes things, they might actually accidentally kill it. That's a valid fear, one way or the other.
Yeah,
I would say,
for sure.
And of course, you're talking about like basically, Souls, from games would be PlayStation exclusives now.
Yeah, or would they?
Probably,
because PlayStation still plays like that.
Yeah.
If it was Xbox,
this ain't Microsoft.
Yeah, if it were Xbox, it would still be multi-platform. Yeah, Sony will say ours.
And like, look, I mean, I kind of get that on one hand. It's like, okay, but let's not pretend that From's games are not PlayStation games.
Yeah.
Like for every how long was it like? Was Elden Ring the first PC release from them that wasn't a complete disaster at launch?
Pretty much, yeah.
That or Armored Core,
yeah.
And it's just like, I'm not saying like I prefer to play them on PC as well. They perform better once everything's got patched up and maybe you've got some community mods stuck in them to make the frame pacing work. At least this way there might be a Bloodborne 2.
Right. No, I think there definitely would be.
How much did that monkey's paw curl?
I mean, that's exactly what'll happen.
Yeah.
That'll be Bloodborne 2 will be the first thing announced after this happens. I mean, PlayStation fans have been begging for it ever since the first game.
Yeah, but there's not
launched.
enough of them. Like you're talking about a game you're talking about a couple million people.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I want to get around to.
Elden Ring just sold 10 plus?
More than that. 20 some. Yeah.
So who gives a shit about Bloodborne?
I mean, that's the big question here. Is this a smart purchase? Now, as you said, Kadokawa does a bunch of other stuff that will make money.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with Elden Ring.
Right.
Like, I mean, I'm sure that's nice to have, but like what Sony's doing here, they're making a big media like mega corporation move here. Mm-hmm. Like this is huge.
Oh, it's gigantic.
And the word is that this might be weeks out.
Oh yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If the story leaked today, they have been talking now for months. Yeah. Finally, somebody who's been in the negotiations was comfortable enough to share with somebody that they are talking.
This is happening. Yeah. When I read this for first, I went back and double take and double checked that Kadokawa was actually what they were talking about. I'm like, is that not
yeah, they're
a typo?
not even trying to buy from out underneath Kadokawa.
No,
which might actually be the smarter thing to do.
I mean, if you're talking about Sony as Sony Computer Entertainment Interactive, but but this is Sony
Entertainment
as a Sony.
Right.
This is the whole
kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
This isn't the PlayStation brand.
Like they're gonna grab this. They want to grab this thing and distribute a whole bunch of shit from it into their different divisions.
Oh yeah.
This is not just for PlayStation.
No, definitely not. Yep. I mean, this is a big play.
Huge.
And the question becomes, is it worth it? Again, to your point, they're not buying it just for the games. But I mean, I still think the jury's out. Although Shadow of the Erdtree sold better than I thought. I will say that.
What did it? I don't think I saw.
I think last I saw was like 5 or 6 million or something like that.
That's pretty good.
That's really good for DLC.
Pretty good attachment rate for DLC and for something you have to play 40 hours and like get a guide to figure out how to start.
And I do wonder too if PlayStation waited for that DLC to launch to see, because we were wondering.
So here's the thing.
We wondered if people wanted to come back after playing Elden Ring.
Right, but here's the thing. PlayStation isn't making this decision.
Yeah.
This is Sony way higher.
I'm sure
than
they're
Sony.
Consulting with the PlayStation.
Sure, you probably
group.
consult with your only successful division, your only profitable division.
would
Sure,
think, yeah.
but like these are the tops of Sony. Like they don't care how Shadow of the Erdtree sold beyond the numbers on the sheet. Like if they were thinking about buying Kadokawa as a whole, then
it's a rounding error. Yeah,
like. The 20 million sales of Elden Ring are the only thing they're gonna, spike anything on that PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, I mean, my what I was getting at is before Shadow of the Erdtree's sales numbers, I wondered if like a bunch of people got Elden Ring because everyone gave it perfect 10s, and they're like, oh, it's a perfect 10, I should buy it. It's an action RPG, I like those, I'm gonna buy it. And they start playing and realize how difficult it is and how challenging it can be if they were gonna come back for another round of that. And they did. Like 5 million people came back for another round of it. So I think maybe if
considering how often I see like achievements and trophies in DLC are like 1.3% people have this achievement, and it's like the expansion.
Yeah.
Like the fact that a quarter of the people who bought Elden Ring bought the expansion, like that's
pretty impressive, man. Yeah. I was really surprised by that.
That's a good attach rate.
I did not. I thought maybe 1 million people would buy it.
It makes me it makes me think that your potential market for like a future sort of follow up is at least 10 million.
Right. At least. Yeah. Yep.
So
it may not be as big as the first, but
no,
it'll
it probably
wouldn't
have the runaway
enough.
thing of the first. But I think it shows that this is not a fluke.
Right.
I think it shows that you could retain a good chunk of that, enough of that audience to make it worthwhile doing it again all over again.
Yeah. And to be fair, to answer my own question I asked earlier, it's hard to say whether this is worth it until we know how much they're going to pay.
Right. How much they're going to pay and what they want to do with all of it.
Yeah. Because, again, to your point, this is about way more than FromSoftware.
Because let's not forget, a lot of this would have to be turned over to Sony Pictures and Sony Television.
Right. To wrangle.
Who are not the greatest stewards of anything. So...
Yeah. Eth Demon says they aren't buying them they're buying them for the anime manga. That's what we just said.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Evil Only 5 says, I wonder if this acquisition was in the works for years and they waited until after the Activision deal was well on its way to pursue this. Maybe.
Either that or it might have been inspired by the Activision deal.
This may be like the counterpunch.
This is an equivalent sized purchase.
I mean, I don't think it's going to cost $69 billion.
Probably not, but neither was the Activision purchase until all that shit happened, until all the legal stuff happened.
And to be fair, I don't really know how much it is going to cost because I don't know what the value of anime is. Like in
Japan
market.
It's pretty much incalculable.
Yeah.
And Kadokawa, I mean, that peacock logo is on everything. Mm-hmm. Is it a peacock? Maybe it's not. I think of it as a peacock.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
You see it in front of everyone.
Yeah.
I got the Macross Plus Blu-ray set this past week, and that has that logo on it too. So
yeah, and they sell that stuff. That's revenue. They make money off all that stuff. So
And that's a 30-year-old anime, and they're still making money off of it.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, that's a big, big deal.
How does let's say it happens, how does this impact gaming in general? Obviously, all From's games become PlayStation exclusives.
Yeah, I don't think it really impacts anything.
Because I think you're right. I think FromSoftware fans already buy PlayStation.
Yeah. I mean, and, it's Sony has turned over this new PC Leaf, so there's probably going to be PC versions of them later anyway, and you can tweak and mod them and do whatever you want with them after that. Certainly, Souls and FromSoftware fans are not averse to multiple purchases. People double dip on the PC versions of these things all the time once they're patched up and fixed.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, obviously the Souls games and From stuff is important, but doesn't define how the industry rolls. It's not going to change anything of note, like, unless there's other stuff under Kadokawa's banner that is of this level, which I can't think of.
I can't either.
It's not.
I would say before.
It's not like they're also getting Square Enix in the deal or anything. It's not like going to change the landscape that much.
I used to feel that way. I would say that the response to Elden Ring has changed my opinion on that a little bit, because it sold way better than I thought it was going to.
It did, but it's one game.
Yeah.
How did Armored Core 6 sell?
Pretty good, but
Pretty good, but not
Elden
like
Ring.
that. This isn't become the new Blizzard. This isn't like, oh my god, FromSoftware makes 10 million copy sellers no matter what they do.
Yeah.
This is Elden Ring hit big.
Yep.
And you sure as hell better make Elden Ring 2 and not some new thing that kind of looks like Elden Ring. I will say it is fascinating to me now that, like, Elden Ring's been out long enough. Like the big new Kickstarter in the board game world this month is called Lands of Evershade by a company called Awaken Realms, which is a big campaign. Lands of Evershade is just Elden Ring.
Oh, really?
It takes place in a world where there's a giant floating shield over the world that blocks the harsh, dangerous sunlight, and there's holes because it's so ancient, it's breaking holes, and light shoots down through it, and the light will kill anything it touches.
Oh.
But the way the landscapes are just big dark world with golden shafts of sunlight shooting down from the ground, it just looks like Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It's like the influence is already there in other game design. But I don't think in terms of business world stuff, like, From is really all that important beyond its own audience.
Do you think PlayStation would force FromSoftware to create another Dark Souls game? Do you think
No.
PlayStation would get heavy-handed with From and be like, look...
Because Dark Souls is not what sold 20 million copies.
Do you think it would mandate
Bloodborne? No, absolutely not.
Yeah?
They would want Elden Ring too.
Yeah.
Because Elden Ring is what sold 20 million copies.
Exactly, yeah.
Bloodborne sold a tenth of that.
Right. Yeah, and the Dark Souls games rarely got close to 10 million, so... Yeah. So yeah, you're probably right. It would be Elden Ring 2, and let's be honest, FromSoftware that's what it wants to do anyway, so... at least make one more Elden Ring, you would think.
Yeah, the only downside would probably be that it wouldn't come out on PC in the same day. Mm-hmm. Which, I don't like that. But I'll play it on PlayStation. I don't care. I ended up, because I didn't have the new card yet, I played Elden Ring on Xbox. So
yeah,
it was fine.
I'm surprised we aren't seeing more Xbox fans in our chat being like, "Wait a minute, like we would lose these games."
I don't think we have a lot of Xbox fans in our. In our regular chat.
We have Xbox fans on SIFTD for sure.
But I can't recall anyone really sticking up for Xbox in the chat live.
Not very often.
Our regular audience is not very Xboxian.
Yeah. Let's check in with you guys, see what you're saying. Silksnake says, anime and manga are blowing up worldwide. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
All my nieces and nephews, they love it. They watch just like all they watch. He says, I live in a small Irish town, and our library has manga and anime, even some... Oh, lost you there. Lost you again. Even some niche books is kind of strange to see. Yeah, I mean, all the kids love anime and manga. They all do. Like, all my nieces love it, which is crazy. My nephews, I get it. Nieces?
I mean, it finally hit TV in the States, like in the late 90s, as a regular programming option. And, like, there's 2 or 3 generations of kids that just, millennials and further... Anime is just part of the media landscape. We had to search it out. We had to go find it. Like I saw Robotech and Voltron and Mighty Orbots and was like, where can I get more of this? Because this is not the same as the fucking Hanna-Barbera shit that I'm seeing on the other channels. And you had to go look for it and rent it at Blockbuster.
The weird thing about
go to conventions and get the bootlegs from the weirdos that had them at the tables. The weird thing about anime fucking turn on the TV and it's everywhere.
When it first started hitting in America, it was kind of bunched together with like psychedelic 3D art Like you would see it on shows that compiled like shorts together,
and the midnight show kind of psychotronic, like it was part of that counterculture sort of thing.
Right.
You remember those
raves? Like I would go to raves, and they would show anime.
Yeah, I remember that.
Gigantic, way before it was a big thing.
Or you remember like what was it? Remember
Liquid Television?
No, Liquid Television. Liquid Television didn't have anime. But it did have Inspired By.
Did it not have Vampire Hunter D in it? No.
Vampire Hunter D was long before that.
Yeah, you're right.
Inspired By. 100%.
Yeah.
Like Aeon Flux is definitely inspired by a lot of that stuff.
That's the closest it got.
It's not anime.
Yeah.
That's an
Aeon Flux is the
American
closest
Korean
it got.
production. But it's clearly a descendant. But you remember those? You remember there used to be children. There used to be commercials on television where they try to sell you something. You had to call a phone number and order it. And it was like all the same. It's like, is that Freedom Rock, man? We'll turn it up, man. Like that's where that's from. There was an anime one where you could subscribe to it. It was an anime club where they'd send you a new anime thing every month. It was like Columbia House Records.
Yeah.
But it was. I remember the VO guy who was just like it's like enter the exciting world of Japanese anime. Yeah. And like it was like the first one was Akira.
Right.
And like it was which is bullshit because you're front loading that shit.
Right.
It's like none of the others look that good.
They weren't that good either. Yeah.
Like Akira is a singular animation achievement even today.
Oh yeah.
But like it was like that was like 80 and that was late. That was 91, 92. I was in high school when that happened. I was like, wow, someone's talking about anime on a TV commercial. I've never seen that before. It slowly crept in, and now everyone doesn't even think of it as mainstream, unusual, which is great.
Dragon Ball had a lot to do with that.
Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, and Naruto were the big push.
Yep.
Those really normalized it.
So anyway, right now it's all in the works. We don't know if this is actually happening. One more question. Oh, J. Reed Vic 7 says, I'm an Xbox fan. There's nothing to stick up for.
Yeah, true.
And then the last question from Khalib Twilai. Do you think Elden Ring sold so well because it stood on its own legs or because of the George R.R. Martin cosign?
I think it's its own thing for the most part. Because
I think he had a little bit to do with it.
I think George R.R. Martin being involved helped it get a little more mainstream coverage.
Yeah.
But I don't think you sell 20 million on the back of a guy's name.
No. But I think it might have helped their games go from like 10-ish million to 20-ish million.
I think it helped percolate it into but I think most of it was like word of mouth.
Yeah, and just the press just gushing over it basically.
Because the sales steadily increased over time, and it was a lot of people trying this thing that had never played a game like that before.
Olfin 81 says, I got an Xbox, but I'm too old to be a fanboy. Man, I don't know how much time you spent on the internet. There's no such thing as someone being too old to be a fanboy. It blows my mind.
Yeah, you would think. But
how 40 and 50-year-olds can act like 13-year-olds.
I would amend that to say I think fanboyism continues from youth. If you haven't already become one, you're probably not going to become one in an elder age. Blitches9 says, I know a lot of people who say Final Fantasy 16 didn't grab them because it didn't feel like anime. Yeah, I've seen that.
I mean, that's what the kids are looking for.
That's the opposite for me. Although to be fair, it's not stereotypical anime, but I played that game and I certainly thought of things like Wings of Oniamis or Record of Lodoss War or things. Anime isn't all the same kind of pigeonhole that Final Fantasy tends to stick itself in. Mm-hmm. And so, it didn't feel not anime to me. It just felt not shitty anime.
Which, let's be honest, a lot of it is.
Yeah, it's not. It just we didn't fall into the usual shonen nonsense.
Yep. So anyway, there you go. That's all we know about Sony trying to purchase, not really just FromSoftware, but also its parent company. My guess is this might happen over the next few days here, and when it does, we'll be back to talk about this again in GameFace episode 413. But for right now, that's pretty much all we've got. All right, that's it for our headlines. We're about to review LEGO Horizon Adventures, but before that, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis.
To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted.
That's right, folks. Go to creamls.com/sifted. Their website is incredible. I can't say I've been to a ton of liquor-based websites, but I'll say this. Of all the ones I have visited, LS Creams is the absolute best. I can tell you already that the liquor is incredible. Once you go there, though, you'll start to figure out how well it works with other things, other liqueurs, other mixers. There are some insane drink recipes on the website. You saw some of the drinks in the ad. In fact, I have made some of those drinks, and they are delicious. And they're not as hard as they look. You look at those, you're like, I could never make that. You absolutely can. Go to creamls.com/sifted. There you can find all the recipes I just talked about. But most importantly, you can figure out how to get your own bottle of LS Cream. If you go into the stores, these are the bottles. Hard to forget, very distinctive. In fact, every time I go into a liquor store, I can do a very quick scan, and I can spot this liquor very quickly in the liquor store. So again, go to creamls.com/sifted. There's a store locator there. You can punch in your zip code, and it'll tell you where you can get it locally, or it will help you out if you want to order it online and have it delivered directly to your doorstep. Again, go to creamls.com/sifted. Look at your impeccable timing, Matt. You showed up as soon as the ad read finished up. Okay. Now it's time to get to our first of two reviews in today's episode. The first game we're going to talk about is LEGO Horizon Adventures. I played this game. I finished this game. Unfortunately, Matt did not get a chance to play it. So this is going to be all me talking about it. But Matt, you love Horizon, and you typically love LEGO games. So I'm guessing you could probably provide some great questions to ask me about the game overall. I would guess maybe.
Maybe. I mean, to be clear, I didn't not have time for it. I chose not to play it.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
Because it didn't look interesting to me.
In what, meaning what?
In the sense that everyone who was playing it was saying it was just like a short combat game.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like a Lego game.
What would you say would be missing from a Lego game that you thought might not be in this?
Puzzles, secrets, replayability, character choice, just sort of
it has some of that
the
stuff.
scale of it. You know, Lego games take a lot longer than 6 hours to finish.
Yeah.
To me.
And to be fair, I got this game.
The fact that this was full price was just too far.
Well, it's $60.
Yeah.
Which
I swear it was $69.99 on Steam. Maybe I was looking at a deluxe version or something.
Yeah, maybe. Because I bought it at a retailer and it was $60. $59.99 is what I paid for it. And to be fair, I did buy it and I did finish it in a day. So I started playing it at 7 in the morning on Saturday, and by around 5 or 6 o'clock, I finished the game. So it's not a crazy long game, just to kind of let you know. This game tells Aloy's origin story. So it is the plot from the first Horizon game. However, it's truncated down to kind of the most important beats because, again, this is a much shorter game than the first Horizon game, which was what, like 50 hours roughly, the first game?
I mean, I'm about finished with the remaster, and I'm at 70.
Okay. So this obviously is much shorter, so it doesn't have as much time to tell the story. But the other thing, too, is that this game is targeted towards a different audience. This isn't designed necessarily for adults. I think it is in a way where, hey, there's this property that you really like, you've played these other games, now you have children, and hey, maybe you may want to get your kids into this franchise that you really like. And I feel like this game is a good vehicle for that. But the first sign that it's not made for people like us specifically is the difficulty setting. So you can see it has 5, which most games maybe have 3, or maybe later on as post-launch DLC, they'll release an extra difficulty setting that's more difficult. This one gives you 5 right out of the box. Now, it defaults to the Scout difficulty setting, which is the second difficulty setting. And personally, I play every game for review for GameFace or any other evaluation that I'm doing. I play it on whatever the default difficulty setting the developers have it set on. So they had it set on Scout. And I will just tell you, if you pick this game up, bump it up at least one notch to Adventurer, because I pretty much walked through the game playing on the Scout difficulty. Now, again, I would probably guess that they've tuned that difficulty for, at the very least, a kid to be able to play along with their parents, because this game is co-op. You can play it local couch co-op, or you can play the game online, and you can just match up with people if you want to. They actually do a really good job, I think, of making it painless to hook up cooperatively. Now, I will say this. if you are not playing cooperatively, which I did not play the bulk of the game with somebody else, because I didn't really need to, because I found it to be pretty easy on the difficulty that I selected. So I did not play with somebody else, but you can see in the bottom right there's a little icon that pops up that says connect a second controller that stays up for the entirety of the game. And that did drive me a little bit crazy. I'm like, I get it. Okay, maybe for the first hour you leave it up, but not for the whole game. But anyway, the bottom line is they're really trying to encourage you to play it with others, and I can understand that. So when you play it by yourself, you can play as Aloy, but a lot of the mission objectives, the way that the design of the game works... Oh, and actually, before we go to that, I want to talk about the story a little bit more. So they do truncate the story down, but it has all the important beats to it. But here's the thing. It's a Crib Notes version of the story for sure, but it also kind of makes fun of the plot of the original game. Like, inconsistencies in the plot or things where in the first Horizon where you're like, hey, that doesn't exactly make a whole lot of sense. They poke fun at it in this game. For example, there's one point where Aloy says, I won't ask you why you... So basically a character gives something to Aloy, and Aloy says, I won't ask you why you kept it from me all this time because I'm too excited. But if you played the first game and you play it, you're like, wait a minute, why did you keep this thing from Aloy her entire life until she finally turns like a teenager or whatever? In this, they kind of make light of it, and they do that.
I don't know what that is.
All the time. It's something that... I don't want to spoil things for people who haven't played the first one or whatever, but...
The 7-year-old game.
Yeah,
it's
well,
2 remasters.
Still. But it's kind of one of the bigger plot points, I think. But the guy who raises her eventually gives her something very important to her, and she asks him, like, why in the hell did you not give me this?
I mean, as someone who just is playing Remake, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh.
Like, he doesn't give her anything.
Well, in this she does. It's related to her.
Right, he doesn't do that.
Yeah,
that's not in the original game.
Really?
He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything about that.
Really?
Rost has no clue where she came from.
Interesting. Really? I don't remember that about the base game.
No, no one knows where she came. No one knows anything about that.
Well, that's the whole plot of the game, really. Is her trying to figure out her origins and where she came from.
Right, but she has to find that all out by herself with like looking at the old holograms. And
well, basically, he had a
what's
clue.
His name? Silence knows the guy. The creepy guy, Lance Riddick.
Yeah.
Is that his name? The guy
Lance Hendricks.
Lance Hendricks. Yeah. That's going to be a problem for Horizon 3, not having him around.
Right. Yeah, it would be a big problem. In fact, it made me a little sad to see the trailer earlier in the show with him in it. But anyway, I'm going on a tangent here. But anyway, they make fun of this game also breaks the fourth wall over and over and over again. Like, they are totally self-aware that they're in a video game. The other thing that struck me a little bit weird is that they talk about, like, a lot of things in modern society. They talk about social media, and they talk about cosplay. And look, I totally get that these games are set in a post-apocalyptic Earth where, you could read a book and learn that there was this thing called social media or was this thing called cosplay. But they talk about it like it's still happening.
I mean, it's a Lego game.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
But, I mean, as somebody who played, as an adult, who played the original game and understands what the setting of this is, to me that was a little weird, I thought.
It's Lego.
Yeah.
I mean, they talk about that stuff in the Star Wars game, too. The part of Luke's major character trait in the last Lego Star Wars game is how much he loves milk.
Yeah.
Like,
her personality in this is way different. She is like the rambunctious tween. She's crazy upbeat. She's constantly cracking jokes, and not like Aloy did in the other games where it's like this deadpan, dry humor. She's literally reading jokes that were written. And so it is a totally different tone. Like, if you play the Horizon games, you're like, man, I don't think my kids would like that. No, they have completely tweaked everything about the original Horizon to make it more palatable to a younger audience. And she is just, I feel like she's more engaging in this than she is. She's not as standoffish and kind of secretive, I guess, in this as she was in the other games, like her RPGs. So I guess what I would say is they show a different side of Aloy, but I like both versions of her. I like the version of her in this, and I like the version of her in the big RPGs that we've already played. So I feel like they did a pretty good job of kind of rejiggering the IP to make it work inside the LEGO universe. And then we'll start talking about the gameplay and how some of it ends up being very similar to what you played in the RPGs, and some other places where it strays off, but is smart, because again, this game is made for a different audience from those teen-rated RPGs that we've all been playing. But there's all kinds of pop culture stuff in this. Like, there's one whole section of the world that's like a DJ and people breakdancing on a dance floor. Like, again, the tone of this is entirely different from what you have ever played in a Horizon game.
I mean, there's a zombie.
No, that's not. Well, I guess that is a zombie
cheerleader.
Yeah, right.
It's a Lego game. That's what they. I mean, I think every single cantina in every Star Wars Lego game, you've been able to turn it into a disco.
Yeah,
like, that's just something they do.
Yeah. Well,
Lego is goofy.
Well, you don't. There is a disco. So I'll just explain how it works. So basically, you have this hub world that is called Mother's Heart. And that is like where you go to all your missions. So it's an area that has branching paths off of it.
Yeah, that's the Nora home base, basically, from the original.
So you go to try a mission, you run to one of the pathways out of Mother's Heart, and you get to where the gateway is to start playing the levels, and basically each level has 5 or 6 different gold bricks that you need to collect, and then like a handful of characters that you need to meet and rescue, and then it may have a few monsters that you need to meet and fight, or locations that are kind of hard to reach that you can kind of check off the list. And you're going to see it here in just a second. So this is me coming up, and right there you can see. So this is, let me go back just a little bit so you can stay on that screen there. And so you can see there, this is the first level. It's called Head in the Clouds. So there's 6 golden bricks that you need to collect by going through the level. There's 4 different characters that you need to rescue. And then those bottom 3 green things with the question marks, those are the monsters or the locations that you need to either fight or visit. And each level has pretty much all the same stuff. And what you do is you play through each linear level. Now, to be fair, there was 1 or 2 levels where there were places where the level split and you could choose a direction to go. But again, that's like 2 options out of all of them. So it's not very prevalent. So for the most part, you go in, you fight through a very linear level. Right before the final battle, you'll come to a room where there's like 3 chests, and they give you like your more powered up weapons there to choose from. And then you either go to fight a boss after that, or you go to fight one of the more challenging arenas in the game. After you finish that, normally you've rescued somebody. At least in the early going, you're rescuing people. And as you rescue them, and this is the area I was talking about where you go to and get the chest before you go to your final fight. Then you go into the final fight. Either you rescue someone or you defeat a boss. If you rescue someone, then that person then becomes a playable character. Not always. Sometimes they go back to the hub world, Mother's Heart, and they'll open up a shop. So rescuing people in these missions actually has an effect on the overall game. They'll open up a shop back in Mother's Heart, or they'll become a playable character that you can select throughout the rest of the game. Ultimately, when you get to the end, there are 5, if you play by yourself, there are 5 total playable characters. There's Aloy and then 4 other characters that you can choose to play as. All those characters level up on their own. And so if you choose not to play with that character stays at whatever level it was when you first acquire them. I chose to just pretty much play as Aloy throughout the entirety of the game. Now, there's this little hut in the hub world that you can go to that give you special missions to accomplish. And some of those force you to play as some of the other characters. Like it says you need to play as this guy through at least one level, and you can unlock this reward or whatever. That convinced me to play as some of the other characters. But for the most part, I pretty much just stuck with Aloy because she's awesome and she's the boss. So you fight through these linear missions, you rescue people, they go back and they open up shops, and then you go back to the hub world. And this is one thing where I felt like the trailers led me astray on this game a little bit. Like, I thought that the hub world was this thing where you're building it. Like, you're choosing the place to put each building, you're designing the layout of everything. That's not how it works. So after you rescue somebody and they go back and open up their hut or their weapons thing or whatever, that's wherever they build it is where it's built. You have no control over where that thing is built. But once it's built, then you can go in and you can buy cosmetics for the locations. And then there's extra bonuses that you're given if you change like the roof on 5 properties or whatever. All that, again, there's that hut full of special missions that you go to, and that encourages you to use some of the cosmetics and stuff like that in the game. Otherwise, it's pretty much frivolous. As you play, you're collecting these little nuts and bolts here. That is the currency of the game, and that studs, yeah. So that currency will buy you new upgrades, and there is like 1 tree for every character. It's very linear, and generally each new option opens up as you complete a level or a stage inside the game. And so as you unlock those, then you can spend your currency to get upgrades, and they're what you'd expect. More health, more attack output, buffs, things like that. So there is a small semblance of RPG in this. Like, you do level up And you do have a very simple skill tree, but I would not go so far as to call it like an action RPG or anything like that. Again, it is an action RPG designed for younger people, basically. That they can understand there's a very simple upgrade path. There's not these complicated like skill trees like you would have in games for adults. So I think that's another area where they've managed to change it in a way that will work for the audience that the game is intended for. As far as combat is concerned, the gameplay itself, this might be my biggest complaint. So you see there's lots of zip lines in this game, and the problem is you do not decide when to go down the zip line. If you get within X number of pixels of the zip line, it's like a magnet, and it just sucks you in and makes you slide down the zip line. If you've been watching this B-roll, you can see that there's all kinds of places in here where there's a little pathway that breaks off and you go down and there's a treasure chest that could have a bunch of really cool stuff in it. It could have a new special weapon or whatever. Once you go down a zip line, there's no going back. It is a point of no return. And that is my biggest complaint about this game in general, is that all the zip lines are point of no returns. And if you just accidentally get too close to it, your character just zaps onto that zip line and goes down, and there's no going back. You have to go back to the hub and start the level all over again if you want to go back and collect what was ever on that branching path. That is probably my biggest complaint with the game in general. And I understand maybe why they did it this way, because they want kids to be able to just run up to the zip line and automatically zip down it or whatever. As an adult playing the game, I found it to be really, really annoying and really frustrating. What else? So, combat. So the gameplay in this is very simple. There's a jump button, and then there's a shoot button. And she has no melee. It's all projectile weapons. So you use her bow pretty much. But the thing is, as you play through the game, you'll come across upgraded weapons. So you'll get like a spread shot for the bow, or you'll get like frozen arrows or fire arrows, things like that. The thing is, those are never permanent. So you get those, but you only have so many uses, and then you need to replenish it. Get more ammo, pick up more, or just pick up some other ability altogether. As far as her abilities that she has all the time, she can jump, and she can shoot her bow, and you can power up the bow. But the thing is like, even if you don't have those special abilities, you can still do cool stuff with her normal bow. So for example, if you shoot her bow through a campfire, the bow sets on fire, or the arrow sets on fire, and then sets everything else on fire. Enemies, if it flies into other patches of grass, it'll set any of it on fire. The same with the frozen arrows. You can shoot the frozen arrows into enemies, it'll freeze them, and you can follow up with another arrow and they'll explode. There are shock arrows. You can shoot shock arrows into the water. It'll electrocute the enemies and give you an opening to attack. A lot of the cool stuff from the Horizon franchise has made its way into this game in kind of one form or another, in a lot of ways simplified so that it will work for the younger audience that you would assume are going to be the bulk of the people who are playing this game. There's cool touches in this game too. Like, one of the things that you can do is when an enemy shoots at you, you can shoot their bullets out of the air. And that becomes a pretty smart tactic later on in the game, and some of the more difficult, like, arena challenges that they give you towards the end of each level. You do have to be a little bit smart. And in fact, a lot of times playing this game felt like playing a twin-stick shooter. It doesn't play like a twin-stick shooter, meaning like tilt the right stick in a direction and she automatically shoots. Like, it auto aims for the most part, and you're always like just hitting square to shoot or holding it in to charge it up or whatever. So it doesn't do a lot of the same stuff, but again, I think it just is another way to simplify it. I mean, you talk about like even using like some of the traps in this. Like, using the traps in the real Horizon games, I think are kind of convoluted and a little awkward to use. In this, it's tap one button to set it, run wherever you want, tap it again, trap set. So some ways I feel like the way they handled stuff in this game is actually a little more intuitive and user-friendly than it is in the bigger Horizon games.
I mean, that's pretty much how they work in the major games too. I just don't use the traps because my bows are better.
Yeah, why even bother?
Like, it's like cool. Yeah, I mean, I'll use like some stuff, like, but in general, if I can hit a weak point with a hard point arrow, it's going to be just as useful as hitting them with a, like a shock trap or something.
Yeah.
And at least this way, I don't need to fuck with the menus.
And as you go through the levels, you've probably seen where you like rebuild these little things. I'll be honest with you, I still don't know what that does.
What?
I rebuilt it all. Like, you just come across, like, these things that are in shambles, and you just hit the button, and it rebuilds them really fast.
Usually it just gives you studs.
I mean, and it does, but I didn't know if it had some bigger meaning as far as, like...
You played Lego games before, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what they do. Just give you more... Because you use the studs to buy everything.
Right.
So you want, but that's the trick of the Lego games is, like, the studs don't matter till you start getting the multipliers.
Yeah.
Which is usually much later in the game. Because then you're like, oh, I worked so hard to get 1,000 studs, and then later you're like, I'm getting 10,000 every time I pick one thing up. You're like, why did I waste all that time doing that?
Yeah. Some of the power-ups are pretty freaking cool. So the double jump in this, you don't get it and can just use it whenever you want. It's also a power-up. But the thing is like, when you jump, it creates an explosion underneath you. So it becomes this really cool mechanic where if you jump over enemies, it explodes them. And it feels very, very good. What also feels very, very good is just collecting the bolts. It's very much like Ratchet and Clank, where they explode, especially the bosses. Just explode in this giant shower of bolts. Then you get to run through them, and they all attract you like a magnet. Like, just like in Ratchet and Clank, that feels so freaking good. There's also a power-up called a hot dog stand, where you literally summon a hot dog stand. And I swear to God, at one point, I summoned a hot dog stand, and it landed on an enemy and killed it like the Wicked Witch of the West. And I was like, that is freaking satisfying. But it also is like a missile launcher. So, like, you put it down, and it's this little hot dog stand that just starts firing missiles. And then what you want to do is you want to attract the enemies to get near the hot dog stand so that it's in range of the missile so it can destroy the enemies. Like, there's some pretty cool and creative stuff in here that isn't necessarily, like, cribbed directly from the other Horizon games. And at first, I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, man, like, the spread shot, the double jump, like, that's stuff that I should just have. Like, I shouldn't have to pick that stuff up. But as the game wore on, and I started experiencing some of the other cooler stuff in the game, I started to understand why it was designed that way, and I was okay with it. It was just at first, I'm like, wait a minute, I want to have the double jump. But you figure out you don't need the double jump. Really what you need it for is because it kicks all sorts of ass and attacks enemies. So eventually, like, you kind of have to let go a little bit and be like, this is what I expect from this game, and just be like, no, this is how they did it, and maybe try to figure out why they did it that way and figure out whether you can appreciate it or not. And in most cases, I was able to appreciate a lot of the decisions that they made. There's no real punishment for dying. You just die and just kind of respawn. It's not really a big kick in the sack or anything. As I said, my big complaint about it are the zip lines and the point of no return zip lines. I still don't understand really why they did that, to be honest with you. There's no fall damage in the game. Again, you can play cooperatively, either local or online. All this stuff is designed to make this game easy to play for the young ones. Your kids or your young teenager or whatever, whoever you're planning on playing this with, all that stuff is designed with the idea that you're going to be playing it with somebody else, and chances are that person might be a little bit younger than you. The production values are great. You've been watching the B-roll. The game looks freaking awesome. And as you play it, you just start noticing all kinds of cool little stuff. I was impressed with the production values of this. My biggest complaint with the production values is you can't move the camera at all. Like, I would like to be able to shift it at least a little bit to kind of look over a ledge and see if there's a hidden path there. I did find myself frustrated with that a little bit, but for the most part, it wasn't that big of a deal. I think the other thing, too, about this, and you're watching the B-roll, is that if you have to play it for a long time to notice some of the cool stuff, because I'm telling you, there was cool stuff happening in this B-roll that you just didn't notice because the camera is pulled so far out. So I feel like the isometric camera doesn't do the presentation a lot of favors because you can't notice a lot of the stuff that's going on, but only as you play it for hours and hours do you start picking up on it. You're like, oh, wow. Like, you can tell, I guess what I'm getting at, is you can tell that Guerrilla worked on this. That this wasn't just some sloppy port or game that they threw out to some little third-party studio you've never heard of. Like, you can tell that Guerrilla sprinkled some of its magical pixie dust on this game. And the more you play it, the more you start to realize it. But the point of no return stuff was a big sticking point for me. The hub world, the whole building stuff that you're seeing right now, it felt like a wash to me. It was really just for cosmetic stuff. And I understand why you do it. Again, it's a game for kids, and the kids love the Roblox, they love the Minecraft, so you want to be able to have something for them to build. And if they are kids, if they're 5 or 6 years old, they're like, I built that. They're not going to be like me and be like, I didn't get to place that where I wanted, and I didn't get to design the town the way I wanted. They're going to be like, I built a hut, and now I get to color the roof green. So, again, I do feel like you have to kind of filter your impressions of this game through the lens of who is really going to play this game, which, let's be honest, is younger kids. Would I recommend this as an adult to buy it, to just play by themselves? For me, that's tough. $60 for a game that took me 7-ish hours to complete, that's a hard sell. And again, if you do decide to do that, bump up the difficulty a lot if you want to have a real challenge. Otherwise, you're going to just waltz through the game. I did find the challenge to be lacking. But again, like, here's something cool. You can pick up anything in the game and throw it. When you first start playing it, like, you don't think about it, but later on in the game, it becomes essential. Like, you basically need to throw stuff. Like, they'll start giving you bombs and exploding barrels, and you can't defeat some of the bosses unless you use those. So, and again, you can pick up humans, and later on in the game, the humans have bombs in their hands. So you pick up the human with the bomb in his hand and throw it, and it actually explodes. So there's all kinds of cool little touches like that. I will agree that it's not as big or robust as most Lego games. You're not going to get as much playtime out of this, although it is priced like you will. And so the price is a sticking point for me, and a couple gameplay things that I mentioned were kind of issues. But overall, it's an enjoyable Lego game based on a property that I don't know will resonate with kids as much as some of the other Lego games. But I understand what PlayStation's doing here. It's trying to make this IP into something that people of all ages will resonate with.
I mean, kids may know Horizon more from the Lego sets than from the games.
That's true as well. Yeah. Also, it's very interesting that when Guerrilla...
The Lego sets are on display in every Lego store.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is that when they built this game, they built everything out of real Lego to make sure that it would be legit before they then rendered it in 3D. So there's definitely a level of authenticity. Like, there's moments in this game that are really freaking cool, like the one where the Strider is walking alongside you all the way through the level. Like, there's just something about having that majestic, massive creature walking next to you the whole time, always wondering when you're going to be able to interact with it. And then, not to spoil anything, but eventually you do, and I won't say how. But, yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job with the IP. There's the DJ and the rave I was talking about. I think they did a pretty good job with the IP, like reworking it so it works for a younger audience. I think if you're a big fan of Lego games in general, you might be left a little wanting. But I do think if you're a gigantic fan like you are, Matt, of the Horizon franchise, I don't think you'll be pissed off about how they handled it. I think you'd be like, okay, like they did a good job. They respected it and did it the right way. So I had fun playing the game. It just didn't last all that long. And to be honest with you, if the game, it does lack depth. So I feel like if the game were to be longer, they would have had to have found some ways to stretch out the game a little bit, maybe actually have skill trees. And then you start getting into the depths where maybe kids aren't all that into it. So I think generally, I think they found a happy medium between a Horizon games and a Lego game to make something that could, I think, appeal to both crowds, ultimately. Do you have any questions about the game, Matt?
Nope.
No?
Not really.
I must have done a pretty good job then. What about you guys? Silk Snake. The price was an issue. It was talked about a lot. Oh, so Silk Snake, you should know, worked on this game. And for that, I'm going to give him a round of applause. Because you guys did a good job. Like, it is, like, no one's going to play this game and be like, oh, that's a low-rent game. Like, the production values, like, it is a quality game. You will play, there's no bugs, no issues. Like, it's clean as a whistle. Plays great, looks great. It's just whether you're going to enjoy the actual design of the game or not. But now he's sharing with us sort of some insider information, which maybe he shouldn't be sharing, but he did anyway. And he says the price was an issue. It was talked about a lot, but the morons at the top want all the money. Hey, fair enough.
Yep.
I hear you, brother. And that's the thing. It's like when you work on something like this, it's just hundreds and hundreds of people, and you can feel very helpless. You can feel like the worker ant, where you're just like, this is wrong. We need to do something, but no one will listen to me. But Silk Snake, in all honesty, like, you guys turned out a pretty quality product. Like, I think you guys should be proud of the work that you did. It's not for everybody, but I do think you guys did a good job with the IP. And obviously the production values are incredible, and working with Guerrilla helps with all that.
The price is just nuts.
Yeah, $60 is tough. Yeah. If this game, and eventually it will come down in price because it isn't a Nintendo game. So when this game gets to around like $30 or $40, pick it up. And I don't think it'll be, even you, Matt, I don't think we'll be disappointed if you pick it up for around that price range. So there you go. No questions, by the way, from you guys about this before we move on? If we go to our next review. Silk Snake says, my nephews know Aloy from Fortnite. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. Matter of Fact says it's one of those games that I play for the visuals alone. Yeah, and you won't be disappointed. Again, the more you play it, the more you start noticing little cool stuff. that they've put into the game. Like things where it's just like this emergent gameplay thing where you realize that there's mechanics in the game that you didn't know were there, and you're like, oh, I can do that, and you start doing it, and you realize, oh, it's there on purpose because it totally kicks ass.
I do like that, as he says, that I do like that everything is Lego.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no cheating. Because TT Games does cheat.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in the TT Games, Lego games, that is not made of Lego.
It was like Mario and Luigi Brothers shit from last week's show, where everything was cel-shaded, and then the water is just like water from any other video game. Like,
but it's like weird little like there's a lot of Lego games where the grass is just grass.
Yeah.
And it's like, there is Lego grass.
Yeah.
You can just do Lego grass. But no,
but they can't. These people could. They're very skilled. And it comes through in the game. So great job, Silk Snake. Congratulations on making an awesome game. Veritas says the Lego in the title of the game kind of told us everything we needed to know. They are known quantities. Yeah. But this is
I would
different.
argue this is a little more simplistic than your average Lego game.
It definitely is. And it's definitely way shorter as well, obviously. So it's not just another Lego game, but
like they're charging the same price for this they charge for the Skywalker Saga, which is just nuts.
Yeah. And which was so long that I actually quit before I finished it.
I finished the whole thing in terms of like the 9 episodes, but I didn't go like 100% it or anything. That was just too much stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go. That's Lego Horizon Adventures. Oh, and that's available for PC, PS5, and Switch, which is an odd collection of platforms. No PS4, no Xbox, but yeah, I guess they couldn't bring themselves to put Aloy on Xbox.
No, it's a little too
it's
far.
It's a step too far, apparently.
Windows is all you get.
Yep. Yep. All right, so there you go. Let's move on to our last review of GameFace 412, which, by the way, I forgot to mention at the show open, that 412 is the area code for Pittsburgh. Go Steelers. Nobody thought the Steelers would be doing what they're doing, by the way. I'm just going to slide that in there, including me, who's like their biggest fan. And we're going to talk about... Or actually, no. You know what? Before we do that, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, The Lands of Hyberian.
Welcome to The Lands of Hyberian, an old-school turn-based RPG with a point-and-click adventure vibe. It's under development by Sifter Hussein Stealthy Zaban. He's trying to finish his first ever video game, but he needs your help. The game currently includes around 4 hours of content, complete with 49 achievements, but his goal is to improve what he's already created and add another 2 hours before it's complete. Right now, as part of this special promotion, you can purchase this game for just $1. That goes towards things like trading cards, replacing AI art, voice acting, and the soundtrack. While it's certainly not required, Stealthy is hoping you'll provide as much feedback as possible to make this the first video game truly crafted by the Sifted community. There's work to be done, but Sifted Army, let's band together and try to make the best game possible. It's in Steam Early Access right now, and you can find a link to its product page in the description below, or just search for The Lands of Hyberian on Steam. Let's do this!
So, folks, our contract for sponsorship with The Lands of Hyberian, we only have a couple more episodes of GameFace before the contract is up. So, I just want to start pushing you guys to go and, be a part of this, because we're starting to run out of time. So, go to Steam, search for The Lands of Hyberian, Hyberian, pay $1 for the game, and get involved. Again, this is a unique opportunity. If you've ever been interested in game development, I've been kind of interested in it my whole life. I've never had an opportunity to work on a freaking game. And he has done all the heavy lifting. Sifter Stealthy has done all the heavy lifting. Now you guys are just finishing off the game, polishing it up. You can learn so much from working with the Sifters who are working on The Lands of Hyberian. Again, go to Steam, search for the game, buy it for $1, and start getting involved with the community there. I cannot wait to see what happens when this thing is all done. And again, I'm going to start pushing that hard as we get to the end of the contract here, because I really want to see this happen. I really want to see a game finished by a bunch of Sifters. That would make me feel really, really good about our community. So go do it. Go to Steam. Give them $1. Get involved. Get your name in the credits. It's a great learning experience if you ever wanted to make a video game. All right, now we're moving on to the final topic of today's show. We're going to review Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake. It is an HD-2D remake. My favorite thing about this game is the HD-2D remake, because the visuals really are something.
Yeah.
I am excited to go to each new area in this game to see what it looks like and see how the lighting works and everything. They did a lot of work on this which I'm shocked at. Like, I can't believe that they went back and worked so hard on this game. Because, Matt, I'm just going to say it right out front. I think this game is terrible. It is obviously Dragon Quest 3, so JRPGs and turn-based RPGs were just kind of finding their footing. But it is so hard to play in 2024.
I like it a lot, but I like Dragon Age 3 Dragon Warrior 3 here back in the day. I played it. I think I finished it.
Oh, really?
Back then.
Back when it came out?
Yeah, not when it came. It was out. I played it with my girlfriend in high school. She had an NES and some games, and this was one of them. And she's like, I never really figured out how this works. I'm like, allow me to show you. So we played through Dragon Age 3, and this is a lot easier. I'll tell you that much.
Than the OG was?
Oh yeah. I mean,
this is still kind of hard at points.
No, it's challenging in places, but it's quick saves and it auto saves,
Yeah.
and you can change the speed of things. And like you could only save at the churches. In this one, there was no auto saving. There was no any of that. And
that's brutal.
You wandered out there, you got killed, you had to redo it all. So
that's brutal. That's like the first Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's not. It was not very forgiving. This is very much a straight remake. I mean, there's a few changes. I mean, I think in terms of additions,
you can speed up the combat, thank God.
Well, that in terms of content, I think they added some flashbacks to your father, which was never a character. People talked about him, but you never saw what he did to get his reputation.
Yeah, we should explain the plot.
That
probably.
is actually in this version. Beyond that, I think it's pretty much the same content as like the updated version from like the Game Boy Color.
Yeah,
whatever.
I remember that. Yeah. Well, basically, you play as a boy who wakes up on his 16th birthday. Or girl. That's right.
The grifters are very mad that you can choose to be a girl in this game for some reason.
Ridiculous. And basically what happens is your father has disappeared, and he's like a legendary warrior that everybody worships in your prefecture. Whatever
he's been gone forever.
He's been gone, yeah. And you are now of age, and you set out on your own quest, basically, to stop this crazy archfiend Baramos.
Yeah, who's apparently only your lineage can stop the whatever it is.
Smite him or whatever.
I mean, it's a JRPG from the back in the day. You know what this is.
Yep. And then you go local. You create your first party. You have a 4-person party. You plus 3 others. And
this is where you can see that like the JRPG comes out of Wizardry. Yeah. Specifically Wizardry 3, which was an old dungeon crawler on PC that became a big deal. Yeah. That's why it's first person in the combat here, because that's what Wizardry was. The dungeon crawling is first person. But the fact that you put together your party out of generic, like Ultima sort of, you put your party together out of generic classes.
You get your class from answering a questionnaire at the beginning of the game.
Well, that's not even necessarily that. That's some more stats. Like you can be anything. Your main character in this can be whatever you want.
But you get your first set of stats from your questionnaire.
Your set of stats and your kind of your growth speed determines on a personality test you take, which was again a very common thing for like Wizardry and that kind of stuff. Ultima took that too. So you kind of more unique from like the Wizardry pedigree. Your main character is sort of a jack of all trades, do whatever you want, and is like an important person with an actual character sort of. And then you can just go hire randos to fill out the rest of your party, or you can go create your own, which is what I did. You can name them.
I think that was a mistake. I did that, and that character that I created was a nightmare. He was dying like over and over again.
That's what you got to let the dude apply the stat bonuses, the seeds.
I was giving them to my character, all the stat bonuses.
No, you can't. You gotta. I mean, the stat bonuses you find, but when you create them, you get 5 seeds,
right?
And you have to let the guy do that.
Yeah.
Because he knows.
I regretted creating my own character. I wish I had just stuck with the ones that she had given me.
No, my old party is created characters. Yeah, and they're all great.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I had trouble with the mage because the mage can take like 3 hits early on. But nowadays, it's fine. Once I got some armor on him, he's fine.
Yeah.
It is interesting that a lot of the armor restrictions that became standard are not necessary. I mean, there are armor restrictions, but like I got like the mage in like a tortoiseshell armor suit right now.
Yeah.
At one point, I'm like, oh, this is different. Yeah. It's not just clothes. It's not just robes. Interesting. But yeah, it is a old school JRPG. It is not kidding around. I will say, as soon as you get in the game, you bump that message speed to fast, and you bump that battle speed to ultra fast. You just get through that shit.
At the end of every battle, it takes forever for it to go through its process.
Because you got to have a little separate thing that says the enemies were defeated. Beat.
It's brutal.
Now you can press the button. But an ultra fast, it just goes as fast as you can possibly read it.
Yeah.
And then it drops all the stuff, and like it's that thing's like, oh, so and so leveled up.
And
it's it's like now you can press the button. It's just like it's a little.
It's annoying.
It's just long enough that you're like, fuck
It
you.
is
After like
annoying.
the 10th time it happens, but like
The other thing that's annoying is the combat is automatic. Like, you can choose, like, attack or flee or magic or whatever. But then once it starts, like, it just starts. Like,
it's not. No, you can set everybody to manual, which is exactly what I did.
How?
It was an option in the thing.
So I know you can go in and set tactics, but it was always like attack,
you set
heal.
you set it all to manual. And
Really?
You choose what everybody does.
Like, you can choose a specific enemy to attack with a very specific attack?
You have to choose the group of enemies. But
Right.
You can specify whether each character is attacking or casting which spell or
Right.
using which
But
skill.
so here's what happened to me. I would choose the group, and I would choose
because the default is you control all the actions of your character, but the 3 party members all do their own thing.
Right. That's how I played it.
Yeah, I turned all that off.
I didn't realize you
immediately.
could do that.
Yeah.
I felt like the game did not explain that.
Well, no, it's a JRPG from the 80s.
So I played it all, counting. So I would select the group. I would say, okay, these are the most difficult enemies in this group, and I would put my character to attack those. But like, they would just do their own damn thing.
Yeah, I played 2 battles with them, and I went in. I'm like, there's gotta be a way to turn that off, and sure enough, there was.
I tried to find it, but I went to tactics, and I could only select like attack, defend, or heal.
Yeah, there's a manual choice.
Really?
Or
I
off
totally
or something,
missed
something like,
it.
I can't remember what it was, but I set them all to that
Oh
and
damn!
just controlled them the whole time. It
So,
was
because
fun.
here's what would happen: like, their AI sucks.
Yeah, it's not
like
good.
they're not smart enough to say, "Hey, there's one enemy in this group that only has 1 hit point left. Let's take out that enemy."
And then on the flip side, they are, when you turn them to manual, like, and I set them all to attack, like the one group that I want to kill first. If you kill them all, because they randomly they don't randomly, but they do attack different enemies in that group. So say if you got 4, whatever the monsters are.
Slimes.
Like, they're pretty smart about, okay, my one character has hit this for like 12, it's got 14 hit points, so the mage will be the one that hits that one the next time they kill it, and like the guy, like my fighter who does way more damage, he's going to attack a fresh guy that hasn't been hit too much.
I didn't get any of that from the AI, man.
No, they did real well.
My
on that.
CPU is a bunch of morons.
Well, because you didn't have a manual,
right? Yeah.
And eventually, so one of my hot tips is the first things you do on the first island, which before you get sent out in the big world, you can collect in the first dungeon and stuff. You can find these mini medallions. Mm-hmm. For the love of God, find 2 mini medallions in that first dream tower, and then take them to the guy in the bottom of the well in the town you start in, and trade those in for the thorn whip.
No.
Because the thorn whip hits every enemy in a group.
Oh, well, I got a boomerang that did that too.
Yeah, boomerang, but thorn whips are even stronger.
Yeah.
So, but after I got that, like, it was like, okay, there's like 12, 6, of these, whatever the anteater things were,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, my main character's just like, whoop-ha! And like that, they're all dead. Like, that's very satisfying. You see them all just fall.
This is a game of getting over humps. So I went into that tower at first. I was struggling. I was like dying. And
I'll kill you. Yeah.
Here's the other thing is when you die in this, you have to go where we are right now in this B-roll. You have to go to the church to revive your characters.
You gotta drag a coffin with you.
It's awful. You drag so if your characters die, you drag their coffins through the whole level. And then until you get to the church where you can revive them, in dungeons there are places where you can rest. So if they aren't dead, if you don't have the ability to heal them, you can rest and heal them, but you cannot resurrect them.
Yeah.
You have to go all the way back to this church at a town. Doing that, just traveling, is expensive. Or you can get this one item. What's it called? I can't remember what it's called.
Chimera wing?
Yeah. Buy those. Buy the living crap out of those wings, man, because those will let you fast travel back to the town.
Okay, so I have never used a Chimera wing.
Really?
After 20 hours of playing this game.
How do you get back?
I just walk.
You walk all the way back to the church?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I can fight more stuff and level up.
Oh. So
if you're not here to grind, you better not be here at all.
Yeah.
Like,
what I was getting at is that tower kicked my ass, killed all my people, had to find a way all the way back to the church. The other thing, too, is like when you go to revive your characters, the first one's cheap. And then it keeps doubling.
They keep charging you.
And they're so stingy with the gold in this game. Like, it hurts to have to revive your characters.
They stop being stingy after you leave this.
Oh, really?
I have tons of money now.
Okay.
My mage died once. That's the only death I had, and I had to drag him back. And it was like here. It was like in the middle of it was like 4 feet from the town, and like 2 of those things attacked him at once and just killed him. I was like, all right, like I guess we'll go back.
You're lucky you were close.
And so you do that. But yeah, like, I mean, it's not super unrealistic that the church is fucking bilking you for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I'm gonna call that stupid or anything.
I just found it very annoying, and so the tower was kicking my ass. I went back, revived all my characters, spent a lot of my gold, and then I went out and grinded in the open world basically, and just fought like.
Yeah, I mean it's Dragon Quest.
And it probably took me an hour and a half to go up like 3 levels.
Yeah, I was.
And then I went into the tower and wiped the tower. Like, I had no problem then.
I mean, much like old school D&D, which is what this, is closer to at the time. Like, levels matter. Like, going up one level really changes.
It does.
You notice the power.
You gain a lot of health points.
Get a lot of health. You get a lot of MP. Like, I've never even come close to running out of MP, even when I use the spells.
Yeah, me either, actually. Yeah.
Like, it does that very well.
Yep.
This is a good. I like this game a lot. It's not for. I have to be in the right mood. 100%.
Yeah.
But it is gigantic, and you get out in the main world. Once you leave this island, you get to the main world, and then after a little while after that, you get a ship. You can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like it is really the JRPG. It's like it's a little primitive. It's you're seeing the roots way more exposed than like a lot of like 16-bit era stuff. But if you have any fond memories of that NES era of these, like this is as good as this is Dragon Quest 3 as good as it's ever gonna be.
My final note on this is like easily the best version of the game.
Easily for the music all done in orchestral like symphonic style. It sounds all.
I wish there were more songs, but they do sound great. They repeat a lot.
They do repeat a lot.
Yeah.
But they sound amazing.
The voice acting is terrible.
Voice acting is not really.
It's really
present.
bad.
It's just sort
so
of
bad. It's like you and I did it.
It's just a bunch of like,
I mean, there's voice they deliver lines in this, but it is not good.
Yeah.
You wanted to forget it. I think
they're not. It's standard anime dubbing.
The sound effects are literally like saw waves.
Some of them, some of them are good, but then like every time you leave or enter an area, it's literally an 8-bit like stairway, like stepping through a level of a dungeon thing. And I'm like, that's an interesting thing to leave in. Like when it's like juxtaposed with like some of the best music recording I've heard all year, and it's like John Williams conducting, and then some guy just comes in with like a little like.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like if that's how you want to play it. I mean, I know that's a classic Dragon Quest sound.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Maybe you could have, I don't know, done a 44 kilohertz version of it or something. That's an idea.
I mean, the way I look at this game is like it feels like an archaic oddity, I guess is the best way. It's like a playable museum where you go back and see the way things were, and it makes you appreciate the way things are now. Like, I honestly wouldn't like recommend anyone buy this for more than like $10.
I'm entirely happy with what I paid for this.
Yeah, how much is it actually? Because Square Enix
60.
sent it. Whoa!
It's a full price game.
Square Enix sent it to me.
But
so
you're going to get like 140 hours
it's a big
out
boy.
of it. Like, it's a big
If you
sucker.
like it, yeah, you'll get your money's worth.
You got to know what you're getting into. Like, you got to know what this is. Like,
and I think that's what we just did for everybody.
If you don't have like nostalgia for this sort of thing, or you don't enjoy sort of this sort of throwback idea, like you're going to be like, what the fuck is? Because it is primitive. Like, primitive is not. I don't say that as an insult to it. It just is.
Yeah. It's like a playable museum, basically.
But it looks really. I mean, I think the looks of it could trick you into thinking that it's a little more advanced than it is.
Yeah.
Like, this is not Final Fantasy VI. This is not Chrono Trigger.
This
is not that friendly.
No.
This is Dragon Quest. It's here to kill you, and it's here to waste your fucking time.
It really does. Did you catch a day or night cycle shift by any chance?
Oh yeah.
They're so awkward. It's like they switch flips and it goes.
Switch flips and the conductor just switches songs.
Right.
It's like, okay, we're still playing this now. And it doesn't seem to work in towns.
Right.
I think you have to leave.
Whatever it's set at when you go into town is what it is. Yeah.
But I enjoy. I think I would love to see them do Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger in this style, like this.
I love the art. Yeah, they did a good job. I mean, these battle scenes are a little Spartan, but.
A little bit, but like there's a lot of cool animation. Like the animation of the enemies is really good. Like even their death animations are like
they're funny.
I love it's not the slimes, but it's like an ooze, and they just sort of melt into themselves and kind of smile when it happens. Like they're happy they finally don't have to live this tormented existence. Yeah, it's like a release for them.
Right. Yeah.
I've been repeatedly like the caterpillar things have really cool animation. A lot of the bosses have cool animations.
Yeah.
Like they did a good job on a game where. The animations in the original were basically two frames. Yeah. So,
well, now they're like 10.
which is again kind of what I'm saying. Where like if you have nostalgia for 3, which I do, you're gonna be pleased by a lot of the upgrades here, but they're only gonna feel like upgrades to you if you
played
have
the
strong
original
memories of the NES version.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had moments where I was like, "Oh, this is taking me back to my childhood," but
That was it. That was
sorry.
it. Go back to what that was.
I don't think
Go
I
back
can.
to where you were, where that thing, because you literally had selected the manual option
Really?
and didn't pick it. It says follow orders. That's what it is.
Oh, wow.
It means follow your orders.
Oh, interesting. I missed it. Unfortunately,
right at the end of that, you switch through because clearly you were fucking sick of this shit, and you're trying to figure out how to make them fight like non-morons. Yeah, you go into tactics at some point. And at the bottom is follow orders.
Oh, really?
I
didn't see
think
it.
it said follow my orders. Maybe.
Oh,
And
interesting.
That means you get to command them.
Oops. Well, the game does not
It
do
really
a great job.
changes the game.
I bet it does. Yeah. Maybe that would make me buy it for $15. But generally, I found this game to be really old and creaky, although much better than the original. But I did find it to be old and creaky and a little archaic. I didn't feel like I had a lot of control. I found it to be difficult. Like, I feel like there's a hump to get over with this game. Like, once I did grind a couple of times and I started being able to just kind of like play it,
That's what I mean
more.
by walking everywhere. As long as you walk everywhere,
You're
gonna
gonna fight
be high
stuff.
enough level.
Oh, we should
you're
also
gonna be
mention there's
fine.
random encounters that you can't avoid.
Yeah.
You can't. There's no enemies out in the world that you can see. Like, there's no first attack. Like, if you get them from behind to start the attack.
No,
like,
what do you think this is? Persona?
I mean,
None of that shit.
there's no comforts at all in this. Yeah, it's
Just
the
speed,
OG.
Just speed options.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
And there are difficulty levels, but I think one of them is just like you get less money. And,
Right.
And
So, would you
they hit
recommend someone
harder.
buy this for $60?
If you like Dragon Age 3,
Yeah.
or not Dragon Age 3, Dragon Quest 3, Dragon
Yeah.
Warrior 3, whatever you want to think of it as,
Mm-hmm.
or you remember those old school wizardry thing, you gotta, or you're curious about it.
Yeah.
But again, you gotta remember this is not a modern RPG. This is not Octopath Traveler. This is not Unicorn Overlord. This is not Final Fantasy 16. This is an old school dungeon crawl with turn-based combat that does not have a story to speak of beyond like sort of go kill the thing.
It's the premise, basically.
I mean, you're gonna talk to people. You're not gonna have a different like little mini episode of a soap opera in every town you walk into. But it does have a lot of quality of life stuff that I thought was interesting. Like it has, like you can have the thing where it tells you where to go. It has a little circle where to go. You can turn that off because the original didn't have. You got to listen to what everybody says and figure out where they're trying to tell you to go.
I turned it on.
And I will say,
turned it on. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
I didn't have it on much of the time, but because I will say, like, part of the way you survive this game is by poking your nose into everywhere.
That's true. Yeah.
And like, if you don't accidentally explore some cave because it's not marked as where you need to go next, you might find yourself under leveled to when you go.
Or you may miss a really powered weapon that could make a huge difference.
100%.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna find that weapon you just bought.
Right.
And you're like, fuck. Yeah.
That's rough. Yeah.
And you got to, but you do have to keep your party upgraded. Like that is the most important thing. Is like you're gonna suddenly wander in an area where they're hitting 3 or 4 times harder than they were where you were before.
Yep.
And if you don't have your armor up to par, you're gonna lose your mage in one shot.
And if your characters are dead, they do not gain XP either.
Right.
So you have to take them back to the church, revive them.
My mage is permanently a little bit behind the curve because of that, because he died that one time.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
And we had like 3 fights on the way back, so he's just sort of like, okay, we'll just sit there like that. And there's a bunch of different classes. There's like there's a monster hunt, like a Pokemon master.
That's what I created for my created character.
That's
he got
the
his
hardest
ass
class
kicked.
to use. Yeah, because
I've regretted it.
You gotta. I will say, if you're gonna get this and you're kind of not super versatile, start with your character, whatever you're gonna play as. I would be like kind of a battle mage.
Yeah.
Sort of what your standard. You want a fighter, you want a mage, you want a priest.
Yeah.
That's it. Like keep it vanilla. Don't worry about the monk. Don't worry about the merchant.
Right.
Fuck that. There's a jester, which is sort of like just random shit, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And there's the monster tamer.
Yeah.
And you
just stick with
tried and true.
true.
With those tried and true core party, and
Yeah.
come back to those weird classes later when you've got a little room to. Even the thief really isn't. You can double up as a thief as your main character enough, and you can reset the job classes on your companions. That's why you should give all this after this. You give the seeds to the characters when you create them, but after that, whenever every seed you find, you should give it to your main character.
That's what I
because
do.
if you change your job class, you reset that character back to 1, and that halves all their stats. And like, obviously you're going to be higher level by that point, so you're going to be able to catch up much faster.
Yeah.
Because you're getting a lot of XP. But like, if you want those stat boosts from those seeds to be permanent, just give them to your character.
That's what I did.
So that's my advice for that.
All right. Well, there you go. That's Dragon Quest 3
And
HD-2D remake.
Save.
Yeah.
Multiple slots. Keep it going, just in case.
But it is much easier that way.
It is easier, but also, I mean, it auto-saves after every battle.
Right.
It auto-saves all the time. You can quick save at various places.
Yeah.
Like, it's much more friendly than the old ones were, so you're not going to lose a lot of time.
Yep.
But every once in a while, like, I couldn't get out of that mage dying, because I hadn't hard saved for, like, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And, like, he died, and it auto-saved as soon as he... Like, if your guy dies in a fight, just... force quit the game and reload the last autosave. Like,
that's some old school shit right there.
Don't even bother, because otherwise you're going to have to drag a coffin across half a continent, and nobody needs that.
Yep. All right, well, there you go. That's Dragon Quest 3 HD-2D. It's available for PC, both PlayStations, Xbox Series, and Switch. $60.
I think so.
Big ass.
If I remember right.
That's a lot. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time in GameFace episode 412, so we can't do Name That Game today. It will be back next week. Before we go, though, I want to say, if you want to support us, if you're enjoying the show, head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. For just $4 a month, you get all our content early. You get GameFace 4 days early. You get Pachter Factor a week early. You get all our other content at least 3 days early. It is the best deal in gaming Patreons. I promise you that. If you don't have any money, that's okay. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can help us out with Twitch Prime. If you're watching on YouTube, and people on YouTube, please do this. Please go down below and connect your accounts. Once you connect your accounts, you just do it once, and then it literally takes 3 seconds every month to just go and resubscribe at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. We'd appreciate it very much. And if you don't have Amazon Prime and you don't have any money, like the show, review the show. People on Spotify, y'all are not reviewing the show. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of you guys and girls who are listening to this show on Spotify, and y'all are not reviewing the show. So if you're listening to this show right now on Spotify, stop it, go and review the show. It will make a huge difference for us. If our podcast bubbles up on Spotify and gaming, kaboom. Again, even if you don't have any money, you can help us so much. If you just show a little bit of effort, we'd really appreciate it. So again, if you want to help us financially, go to patreon.com/sifted. That is the best way to help us on a permanent basis. And again, for just $4 a month, you get all our content early. And that's going to do it for GameFace 412. Sorry about that. We'll be back next week right here at twitch.tv/SiftedGames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Let's see, next week we have Stalker 2. We have Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024.
Isn't that the day of?
I think, isn't Flight Simulator today?
Is it?
I think it comes out today on Game Pass. And then Stalker, I think maybe is Friday.
Stalker's Friday.
Yeah.
Thursday night.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So we'll be back. More banging games. And we're kind of starting to wind down here a little bit. A lot of you guys want to help us out for the holidays. If you want to buy us a beer for the holidays, go to donate.sifted.net. You can input whatever amount of money you want to there. You can pay with any credit card or with PayPal, and it works in like 180 countries. A lot of people who don't want to get mixed up with Patreon or a subscription service or just sign up for another freaking website. A lot of people at the end of the year, they like to go to donate.sifted.net and just give us one chunk of money right then. Another good thing about it is we don't lose as much money from that as we do from Patreon, who takes a cut of our money. So that's a good way to support us if you want to. You can do that year-round, obviously, but around the holidays, that's when our donations really start to pick up. So if you want to tip us and say thank you for literally like the hundreds of hours of podcast entertainment we gave you this year, go to donate.sifted.net and hook it up. We'd really, really appreciate it. So that's it for episode 412. Hope you guys have a great week filled with great games. GameFace is up and out.